like we're ready to start. Welcome to the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board meeting for August 18th, 2022. Please start by joining me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. And I just want to mention anyone here on the Zoom call that's for the Salt Point Center application, they've requested to be removed from the agenda tonight. And for anyone out there on Zoom, we have a 5-member board tonight, so we have a quorum. And I would say we do have a long agenda also, so we are going to institute the 3-minute limit on the public hearings tonight. Right, first up is Hudson Heritage Amended Site Plan and Subdivision. Who's on for that tonight? Kyle out there somewhere? I see Kyle. David?
Kyle, you're on mute, I think.
Still on mute.
Oh, it's his computer.
Or are you having trouble with your computer? Yeah. It's going to make for a short presentation.
I didn't wear my You're on Mute shirt tonight.
Yeah. No? David, could you just make sure that we are, everything else is working properly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Now we got it.
Now we got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard you.
I had to do the old unplug the USB and plug it right back in. So.
Always something.
You must be an IT professional.
And we heard
Yes.
And we heard
I'm not, but my brother is. He taught me well, I guess.
But you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We heard you too, Marty, so we're good.
Okay, so Kyle Ahern with Labella, Andy Derrickson and Marty Berger are also here tonight for the applicant. Not a whole lot to go over tonight, but a couple items that the board asked that we look into and kind of tie up some loose ends at the last meeting. So to bring you all up to speed again, those two items were the landfill. So specifically the maintenance agreement or maintenance association declaration had some language in there that the town was looking for and the board was looking for to ensure the long-term maintenance of the landfill parcel that's being subdivided. So that was submitted to the board and to town council. It was reviewed. I think there's just a couple minor red lines that may be outstanding, but the declaration is now in a form that everyone, I believe, is on the same page as far as providing those assurances. The other main item that the board was looking for us to address before they could act on this was to have a meeting with the county DPW to discuss the rail trail and specifically the maintenance of the rail trail. So we had that meeting. There's some questions about insurance, but it's not really site plan related. The maintenance part of it was discussed, and and the owner is going to be responsible for the trails. The declaration actually kind of outlines that, and you'll see in the resolution that's kind of addressed as well regarding the maintenance of the trails. So I think we're all set with that aspect as well. There's some outstanding technical comments, but those, as we discussed last time, those have been whittled down, and the remaining comments will be addressed as part of conditional approval.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. You go to Eric to get his take.
Sure. As noted, the plans and comments remain from the July meeting, at which time the board appeared to be amenable to conditions of approval. If handling those as conditions of approval, if the draft maintenance agreement could be provided satisfactory to council and the board. You now have an amended declaration for your consideration. And for that purpose, staff prepared a recommendation, resolutions, and a more detailed subdivision resolution from council to provide for a conditioned approval of the subdivision and of the site plan. Just as a side note, sometimes when there's a subdivision and site plan, there's a question about sequence. In this case, they each depend upon the other one and would need to be completed together.
Okay. All right, thanks, Eric. David, can you comment on the agreements and where we're standing?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had some comments on the proposed master declaration for the Hudson Heritage Master Association with respect to their obligation to maintain really maintain and oversee the landfill.
Right.
The applicant has included those red lines in the proposed second amended draft that restated HHMA as Master Association, which is before the board. We're satisfied, staff and myself have reviewed it, and so did Jim Nelson as well. We are satisfied with the additions to the document, and so the condition of approval for the subdivision would be that a recorded version with our red lines in it, obviously without the red line shown, but the new language in it,
Yep.
is presented to the town before you sign, Mr. Chairman, the final plat for filing.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, David. Andy, anything left?
Yeah, so, my main comments were pertaining to the landfill and the maintenance of the sidewalks, which have been addressed. So everything else I have could easily be conditions of approval.
Good, it's come a long way. And, moving along. It is on for public hearing, so I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Is there anyone on the call or in the audience that wish to comment on this Hudson Heritage site plan?
I spilled water on the carpet.
Was there any other signups on the? Okay, just double checking no one has signed up.
All
Before you
right.
go.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up on time, unlike me. Yeah, so I was wondering about the subdivision and this master association. So when it comes to master associations, because I have no experience with this, I just understand that a lot of times liability is pushed onto something other than the town or the property owner or yada yada. So my question is, do we have a list of officers? Because this is usually what the red flags that I've been told about is that when it's put under an umbrella of sorts, often there are no executive officers, there's no report on the annual revenue of the company, whatever it is, and that there's usually no address specifically, so those little details, and I'm again looking out for the town, that we need to have a list of officers. You need to understand the annual revenue of this master association to know that they'd have assets if you have to chase them or you have to, put off liability to some other entity. And, you just don't want to be left holding the bag or have them kind of argue about contaminants. Well, which contaminant is this? And, in perpetuity, one side accuses the other forever. And meanwhile, whoever's harmed is not protected.
Yep.
So, okay, I just wanted to comment about that. And the last thing about this particular issue is, again, the mapping with regard to the antenna that's going to be on that site. We really need to inform the individuals and the businesses that are within 146 feet to 1,000 feet, because that's where most of the radiation will fall with this antenna, and that the OET bulletin 65 only talks about 6 minutes for a controlled exposure and 30 minutes for an uncontrolled exposure, an average of 30 minutes. So So that's what I was saying in one of the other meetings, you know, what if you have a longer conversation in the parking lot than 30 minutes? There's no safety guideline for that. The OET bullet in 65 only goes to 30 minutes for
Okay.
a good reason. So thank you very much, and I would love to see an actual map, because when I was looking at the application, I mean, I couldn't tell what was 146 feet to 1,000 feet and what lies in that distance span. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your comments. And from what I understand, there is I don't know if David can comment, but I understand there, you know, that this association will be funded by all the tenants in the property, right?
That's correct. And I'll just step back for a sec, sort of taking a giant step back. The town does not have oversight obligations or enforcement obligations with the landfill, right? The New York State DEC is the agency that is in a consent decree with the current property owner with respect to monitoring, and that is not going to change. In fact, because the town is not considered operator under the law, the town is not liable. But the concern that the planning board raised was just to make sure that there is an entity in place that will still be able to interface with the DEC.
Correct.
In perpetuity. So yes, the master association would be funded by all of the property owners, and Kyle or anybody else on the call representing the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but would be funded by all of the property owners, because that association is also going to be responsible for maintaining public spaces, parking lots, other items on the property, not just associated with the landfill.
All the common amenities.
Common amenities, yeah.
All right, thanks, David.
David?
Oh, Marty, are you trying to say something, Marty?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the second time somebody mentioned a concern over a large antenna with radiation. I don't believe we have an antenna on our property.
Well, not current, there's a separate application coming forward tonight, so and it's not a large antenna, it's a small cell, but we'll talk about that at that time as well. All right, I'm gonna go around the board for additional comments.
Do you want to close the public
Oh,
hearing?
yep. Do that. I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now go around the board for comments. Peter, anything left?
My concern, as expressed at the last meeting, was with regard to the maintenance agreement. We wanted to see it. I have seen it. I'm fine with it. And I was also concerned that we should have a conversation with the town attorney. And that concern also has been satisfied, so I'm good.
Yep, David took care of that. Ben?
No, I don't have anything.
And Nicole?
No.
Rocco?
Nothing, no. Nothing, no, I'm good.
And same here. I appreciate that you've made those changes to the plans for the building I, for example, and I think it'll come out with a nicer project in the end. So let's move forward.
Based upon a review of the planning board application submitted January 24th, 2022, as revised and supplemented through August 18th, 2022, and in particular, the Hudson Heritage Phase 1 amended site plan and subdivision seeker comparison memo prepared by Labella PC dated amended preliminary and final subdivision do not propose project changes that may result in any significant adverse environmental impacts not previously identified and addressed in the planning board seeker findings adopted June 4th, 2019 and considered by the seeker determination of April 16th, 2020 for previous site plan amendments. The amended site plan would not result in a substantial change to the total approved building square footage of the project, the plans to reuse various historic buildings at the site, or the proposed densities for the residential or commercial components of the redevelopment, i.e. not to exceed 750 residential units, 3,050 square feet of commercial space. The proposed uses shown on the amended site plan are consistent with the intensity and the level of demand on municipal resources associated with the use proposed in connection with the site plan as originally approved by the planning board in June of 2019 and amended in April 2020. While Sabre is proposing to reconfigure various buildings, vehicle and pedestrian travelways, and parking areas, the modifications would not impair the mitigation measures incorporated into the project as a result of the previous seeker review process before the town board and planning board. Accordingly, the planning board hereby finds that the amended site plan and amended preliminary subdivision would not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts warranting additional assessment through the preparation of a supplemental environmental impact statement.
Just one correction, it may be written wrong, that it's 350,000 square feet of commercial space. All right, do I have a second? It's moved and seconded for seeker. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Pursuant to section 210-66 of the town zoning code, the planning board has determined that the project as proposed in the amended site plan and amended preliminary and final subdivision would remain consistent in substantial conformance with the modified developmental master plan. The project will continue to result in a phased revitalization and redevelopment of the site with an integrated mix of residential and non-residential uses, including the rehabilitation of historic structures as well as the permanent preservation of open space, environmentally sensitive resources, and recreational resources, all of which would promote pedestrian activity through a safe and walkable environment that links residential components at the site to commercial components of the site, as well as to on and off-site passive recreational resources. This includes the continued proposal to preserve and restore the Great Lawn and the adaptive reuse of 80,000 square feet of the main administration building. The planning board finds therefore that the amended site plan is consistent with the modified DMP.
Second.
Moved and seconded for DMP consistency. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move the planning board adopt the attached Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board resolution granting amended preliminary and conditional final major subdivision approval for section 1 of the Hudson Heritage final subdivision plat.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move that the planning board grant amended site plan approval for the Hudson Heritage amended site plan, last revised on June 27, 2022, noting among other things that the Hudson Heritage Maintenance Association and the town of Poughkeepsie will continue to have responsibility for common facilities included but not limited to trails as detailed in a second amended and restated declaration of easements, covenants, and restrictions proposed by the applicant and acceptable to the town and conditioned upon and subject to the following terms and conditions. Acceptance as adequate and complete by the planning department of the applicant's responses to those comments of the planning board, town departments, planning board consultants, and other agencies of the planning department determined are required to be satisfied prior to the signing of the amended site plan by the chair, included but not limited to the following 1 through 5.
Second.
Moved and seconded for conditional. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nicole. All right,
you, everyone.
You guys are
Thank you.
good to go, Kyle. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Have a good one. See everyone soon.
Take care.
You too.
Next up, now we have Verizon Wireless at Winslow Gate, the antenna application we had just talked about. Who's here to discuss that?
Good evening. My name is Scott Olson. I'm an attorney. I represent Verizon Wireless. So we're here tonight to present the site plan and architectural review application. As you may be aware, the Zoning Board of Appeals back on July 11th approved the use variance, and in doing so, They determined that we do need a site in this location. They looked at all the radio frequency information. They made their findings. So tonight, we're here just to talk about the specific site plan and architectural issues. What we're looking to do on the property is, as the chairman alluded to earlier, it's just install a small cell facility. It's a 40-foot decorative pole, and it's intended to match the current light poles that are out on the property now. I believe they're black in color. We've provided some photo simulations in the application packet to show you what they would look like. We had a couple of options. One was just a pole with the antenna on top, and then at the request of the ZBA, they asked us, well, what would it look like if you put like a light arm fixture coming out? So we showed those in the simulations also. That's easily added to the project if the planning board so desires. In terms of the antenna on top, it's going to be basically enclosed in a shroud. And I believe Mike Musso previously, as part of the ZBA proceedings, asked that it be color matched along with the cables. We're fine with that. So if the board wants to add a condition to make sure that's taken care of, not a problem at all. One of the other issues that I saw, I think in the planning notes, was about the fence, and we talked about it at the planning board. Typically, these small cells, very small budget. We proposed, I think it was a vinyl chain link fence with slats and some landscaping, but we know that this is in the historic revitalization district, and so Verizon has agreed to provide a fence similar to that, which like like some of the garbage enclosures, the dumpster enclosures, similar to that style to make it more decorative. But when I spoke to my client earlier, they said, if we do that, can we eliminate the need for the landscaping? We don't have the room for landscaping out there right now with the fence. We don't maintain landscaping typically, so if it gets put up, there's a good chance it may not survive. And we personally think that if we're going to put the money into a nice decorative fence, let's let people see the fence. But
Yep, we'll see what the board feels.
sure.
Another example of fence is the Central Hudson has a gas meter out front, and they've actually used the fence enclosure
Okay.
that kind of matches.
It's actually the same material, I believe, as the doors on the enclosures. On
Garbage
the,
enclosures.
yeah,
So
that would match.
So that would all tie the whole thing together with the rest.
Yeah,
of
so
the
what we
site.
can do is obviously this just came up recently. We didn't have a chance to put them on the plans, but we'll look at that. We saw the pictures and we'll come up with a proposal. I don't know if that can be done, if the board's inclined to approve it conditionally, but we can certainly do that to make it look the way you want it to look. So.
All right.
The other thing I just wanted to add, though, is also the ZBA did consider the antenna is fully compliant with the FCC emission regulations, hundreds of times below what we are legally entitled to emit. I know there was a comment for the other application that seemed to be more for this application about the OET bulletin. And again, we have even in your application, we included a certification from the engineer that we are in full compliance with all the requirements. So we can do this without any issues.
Yep, we have a consultant who'll take a look at it too.
Correct.
Yep. Kristen Taylor is the planner who worked on this, but she's out tonight, so we'll have Mike fill in.
Yeah, no, well, Mr. Olson already covered, a good part of the background on this one. As was mentioned, the ZBA really did the bulk of the review here in terms of the, determining the need and also reviewing the RF report. Mike Musso, who's the town's consultant, reviewed that for the ZBA. So primarily we're focused on the relationship of the facility to the HRDD district aesthetically at this point. I think, it's up to the board to talk about, the landscaping and whether you think that's still necessary with the enhanced fence. You know, I think it might soften the look a little bit to have some, but maybe, you know, it doesn't need to be as much as it was before when it was a chain link fence, right? But, you know, that's, there's a lot of ways we could get to that. In either case, those could be conditions of approval, so. We do have Mike Musso on.
Yep, I saw him
right?
down there.
Mike, you,
You're on mute at the moment, but I see
Yeah.
you there. Make comments on the EMF report and such.
I don't know if there's much else to add on this one, but if you wanted to, you could.
Hey, Mike?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, as Mike Welty just introduced, we did prepare a tech memo, which I know this board has. It was really written for the ZBA, but certainly copied to your board, looking at Hudson Heritage's aesthetics. So we did include a number of things in that memo, including logistics and need, Nrf emissions. Those were covered at the ZBA. I do note that I have worked on small cells before in other locations around New York. This is a single small cell being proposed for this area at this time. I did note in this memo also that, I understand that the town is resolved to develop a comprehensive code chapter for wireless facilities. There's one that doesn't exist right now. And just hearing your first agenda item tonight, I know this board and the town has worked really hard at the look and the shape of Hudson Heritage. So I think, it's important. This is not a new tower in the traditional sense, which you have around town, and of course we have in our area. It is a 40-foot small cell. I'm hoping that you took a look at the photo simulations. We did request those, and the applicant did provide. I did include some recommendations regarding color after visiting the site a couple times, looking at the architectural standards that exist for this district, the existing black LED lighting that you have. And yes, importantly, I think the fencing and the landscaping should be vetted with this board. In my memo, I did include some photos. I know you know this better than I do, but I wanted to include some photos of some of the fencing and enclosures that exist in the area. I would gladly entertain any specific questions you have about the application. I do want to note that we do feel that the black pole, including the black antenna enclosure at the top, be all one uniform color. I personally don't think the faux lighting off of the side really makes a difference one way or the other, but of course I'll leave that up to this board who weighs in on the aesthetics. I think the fencing, chain link was proposed off the bat, and I really do think it's good to hear that Verizon would come forward with something that's a little more consistent with other types of fencing, colors and textures. And the idea of landscaping, it's kind of a large area off that supermarket. It's a big grassed area off the parking lot.
Yep.
So I think, landscaping would be an option in addition to the fencing. So I'll leave my comments there, but if there's any specific questions you'd like me to try to address, I'll be here.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hey, can I just ask you what frequencies this is operating at? This is not, this is not fifth generation.
It's going to be, it's in the report, I believe it's 2100
Yeah, okay.
megahertz is one of the frequencies.
Yeah.
Fourth
Yeah,
generation.
usually-
1900,
and
2100,
yeah,
and the citizen band of 3500.
Right.
Okay. Or 3700, okay, 35. All right?
That's
Thanks.
right, yeah.
All right, just wanted to get that out there. Andy, anything?
Yeah, our comments are mostly related to kind of the more typical site plan issues. We're looking for some additional information on access and utility easements, some construction details regarding trenching and asphalt restoration, and some erosion and sediment control notes. So nothing terribly significant there.
Yeah, it's kind of a flat piece of land there,
Yeah.
as it is. All right?
Just to point out too, there's a draft neg deck in your packet I didn't mention before, so.
Yep.
Yep.
I
it's
see
there.
that.
Yeah.
All right, This is on for a public hearing, so I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone in the audience or on the Zoom call wish to comment on this application further tonight?
So we're now talking about,
Can you just state your name for the record again?
okay, Michelle. And I'm a Poughkeepsie resident.
Yep.
I've spoken here before.
Yep, every
And-
meeting's different.
Yeah. So we're now talking about the, not the 9-11, not the 10-50. Are we on to the 5G?
This is the
So-
1050 Winslow Gate Road.
Oh, it is, okay.
Gas station.
Okay, thank you. So if you could start my timer
Yeah,
now.
so it's a fourth generation frequency, small cell.
Yeah, the small cell, it contains 3 separate antennas, so they keep calling it a single cell. There are 3, and the frequencies are such that, as I mentioned before, the 3500 or 3550 is part of the 5G spectrum for Verizon. So whatever Scott says, it's like a marketing thing. Now they're just moving the ball. And the point is that the animal studies that were done for the NTP, which are not in question, it was peer reviewed. Mike Musso says there are no peer reviewed studies, but those are the animal studies that were done from 900 to 1900 megahertz. Those produce the heart and lung schwannomas. So, like I said, we need to know where that radiation's gonna fall. And then we have to know who's gonna take the fall for when people start getting sick. And it will be a difficult road to hoe because these things are difficult to prove when it comes to human beings unless you put them in a lab setting. But according to Dr. Sharon Goldberg, that's unethical. You can't experiment on human beings. There's something called the Nuremberg Code, and you don't have informed consent to this population, but yet that's what you're doing. You're subjecting the population to an experimental technology. Okay, so there's that. We don't know what the capacity of this equipment is. I mean, Scott and Mike Musso may say, well, this is what we're going to be putting up there, but we don't know what the capacity is. And one of our, I think it was Phyllis mentioned, so what if these frequencies change? We're going to be notified, right? No. In fact, if the antenna is under 200 feet, it's not monitored by the FCC. These are unlicensed, unregistered, many of them, antenna that are, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know what the capacity of the equipment is. So we need to understand what the capacity is when it's in operational mode. And so there's nothing written about that. I have so much more to say, and I have a feeling that some of the people here are going to want to say, hey, Michelle, could you help me and speak up for us? Because this information is very difficult to hash through. And I can appreciate that the board, even if they've read everything that I've sent them, which they probably have not, you wouldn't be doing this if you had. That's my personal opinion.
All right, thanks, Michelle. We've read a lot of what you've sent. I appreciate you for doing the research. Anyone else wish to comment tonight?
Antonio Mazzarelli. I'm going to turn my time over to Michelle, but in general, I trust Verizon as far as I can throw them.
What was that? You said? I trust Verizon as far as I can throw them. Okay, thanks.
All right, here's just another point, everybody. What we have on Raymond Avenue and Main Street is 12,000 microwatts per meter squared. I was there. I don't know if the 9-11 antenna is functioning right now. I don't know. no one will tell me. I have to make a special call or do a FOIA request or something to find out if it's actually operational. But I was there, and we're a climate smart city, right? And so it's all about conservation, yada, yada. All you need to make a phone call is 0.02 microwatts per meter squared. We have 12,000 microwatts per meter squared. That's a colossal waste of energy if we're only talking about what the TCA Act mentioned that they're wanted to do for the telecoms. They said for communication, not data streaming. Okay, we're taking the rap, I guess, for Marist because everybody likes to travel in their car and download a movie or whatever they want to do. We're concerned about phone calls. And in fact, when you have a lot of antenna around, you actually may not, you get converging signals and sometimes interference, and then it inhibits the very thing that we're trying to do, is make sure that people can make it a phone call. So we're wasteful to the nines, and we're adding more. So climate smart, yeah, right. Okay, maybe in theory, but not in actuality. We're wasting energy. The engineers talk about this. I don't know if Mike Musso has heard people say it, but 5G and some of these frequencies are energy hogs. So there's that. The mutual indemnification agreements, they don't protect residents from harm. I'm sure the town has one of those in place. And I've mentioned this before, the 185-17, because these two antenna that are going to be placed, and probably also the dish. I mean, these are 5G frequencies, maybe not the extreme 5G, because they say there are all these different levels, but it's just we just don't want to do all this. This is really problematic. So the 185-17, you can revoke these applications because you were lied to on video, or the truth was being misrepresented, let's just say that. So it's in our code right now, not even with the new code that I thank you for being willing to write for the town of Poughkeepsie, but it's already in our code that we can revoke this based on that. So, thank you.
All right, thanks again, Michelle. My understanding of 5G is the true frequencies are more 24 gigahertz to 54 gigahertz range, 25.
Hi, my name is Erwin Bass. I'm the town of Poughkeepsie resident. I'd like to turn over to Michelle to speak for me on this.
All right, let's not keep doing this all day, all night. Michelle, one more time.
No, it's just, I've taken so many hours of my life, and these other people, they're wonderful, they have lives, and I can appreciate that, this is hard. This is hard, and unless it's your business, or you have to make decisions on it, nobody wants to hash through this material. I mean, this is ugly to me. All right, so the other things I want to say that, we do want proof that the antenna are exempt from requiring NEPA or environmental assessment and review. Okay, on what basis do the antenna have this exemption? Because we are always going straight through to the type 2 action, and we're always sidestepping NEPA, and FCC official said, no, these antenna are subject to that kind of review, this environmental assessment, the full environmental assessment. But we ain't doing it. So why aren't we doing it? So the reason why maybe we're not doing it is because we're talking about $5,000. Here, where was that? This is what the town receives as a trade-off to our health, privacy, security, because these systems are not secure. Not like wired connections. I mean, if we just got Marist and the town hall to hardwire their connections, we wouldn't need all of this. I mean, it's great for GPS when you want to get around, but to fill up the space enormously is prohibitively, in my opinion, stupid. Okay, our town officials are trading money for our health. A licensee shall pay the town as general compensation no later than March 31st of each year for the duration of the license, an amount equal to the greater of a minimum annual fee of $5,000 or an annual fee of $2.50 per linear foot of the licensee's communication system in the public's right of way. So this, I mean, Jay's doing a phenomenal job balancing our budget, but I don't think we should be doing it in exchange for our mental clarity, our health, our privacy. So this is awful. This is really awful. And other towns, have put these, ordinances in place that are more protective and so that there isn't over-proliferation. But what we're getting now, we're starting to get over-proliferation, and the people I talk about are becoming incensed. The U.S. Conference of Mayors strongly opposed recent proposals by the Federal Communications Commission to grant communication service providers subsidized access to local public properties and to dictate how local governments manage their own local rights of ways and public property. I don't know if you guys know that. In addition, there was just a recent law ruling, which Andrew Campanelli, plucked out for the town of Woodstock. And so I don't know if Lisa knows about this. I did send it over, and it is the Flower Hill, and I sent it to you, yes? I mean, frankly, Lisa, I did not read the whole thing. I'm like, but I figured it would interest you that our local municipalities have more control than you know, or that you've been told you have. And it's really people like Paul that you're going to be speaking to. Thank you very much. Or not you, all of you, but the Telecom Update Committee. Thank you, Mike. And Andrew Campanelli know. So we got to spread the word and not subject our residents to this or to yourselves, because, like I said, you're moving to the Poughkeepsie Day School within 226 feet of a 5G dish. I mean, you guys already have cancer, some of you, I've heard, and cardiac problems and neurological issues. I'm already aware. I don't think you want more.
All right, thanks again, Michelle. Yep, and we're aware from your research that these things can affect some people more than others as well. Anyone else wish to comment?
And to be clear, we're not passing the time to Michelle any longer.
No, I'm not giving my time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank
I
you.
have my own 2 cents.
Perfect.
Okay. Just state your name for the record. And
My name is Gina Liberti, and maybe you remember me, I've been here before, talking about my concerns about health. I feel the need to remind you of the great harm you have an opportunity to stop, or at least minimize. And as Michelle mentioned, Woodstock has already put certain controls in place, and you have not only the ability to do that, but an obligation, because that's why you're on the zoning board, right? You're here to protect consumers, your fellow citizens. I have previously described health concerns of cancers and neurological issues at being the top of a very long list of health complaints that have been associated with this technology. And we know that they're difficult to parcel because you have heart disease, you have cancer. Where does it come from? Well, maybe it isn't just one place. Maybe it's a perfect storm of everything. Maybe these radiations are actually initiating something that's very slowly growing. And now you get a burst, a tsunami of energy that your body can't handle. I've already described the legal battle with the FCC, being found delinquent with updating their guidelines. And while Mr. Verizon says that they're in legal compliance, that doesn't mean they're in ethical compliance, especially when the FCC is 25 years out of date. There has to be a point where people step up and do the right thing. And it's not just about profit. Now, I realize that a lot of that is the story, but that's not the whole story when you're dealing about whether or not you care about people. You know, something stinks here, and you guys are in a position to clear it out. Maybe you're all just not sick enough. You know, there was one time we were here, and someone reported, the amount of radiation in this room and in the parking lot was well beyond what is considered safe. So the question is, what have you done about that? Have you noticed? Maybe you're not as healthy as you'd like to be and you haven't made the connection that you're living in this soup of poison. And this is what you want to subject to more people by spreading this poison. You're sharing the joy of this poison to other people. There have to be protections in place, and corporations are not generally in a hurry to do that unless they are being forced to do it. So really the question is, what is it going to take to get people to rise to the occasion and be responsible for their fellow human beings and not be bought when the money is there's got to be a way to make this technology work in a safe way. And it is unfortunate that some people have to be forced to do that. You're in a position to do that. So I would ask you please to step up and do your job. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gina. Anyone else wish to make any comments, either in the room or on the Zoom call? Looks like we have one more in the room here. Wish to make a comment?
Hello. My name is Patricia Nash-Wolf. I'm a resident of Poughkeepsie. I am totally opposed to this plan you're considering. You're not paying attention to the dangers. I'm having trouble sleeping. I live on Dutchess Turnpike, and the energy that is coming in my direction is harming me. I'm an old lady. I would like to live a little longer, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to because of the harm in this area. I don't think you realize what you're doing by not paying attention to the dangers. I really wish I could encourage you to pay attention to what these people are saying and recognize what's happening. You don't realize how dangerous it is for people to be out and about. I'm avoiding certain areas because I feel ill when I go there, and I know it's from the radiation from the cell towers. I really am so unhappy about what's going on and what could be done and isn't being done. I don't know what I can do and say to encourage you to pay attention to what these people are saying. They've done their research, and I wish you would do your research as well. We're counting on you. Please do something to help us. We don't want to be sick.
All right, thanks, Patricia. Anyone further?
Yes, I'm going to be brief. My name is Anthony Ciro DeLillo, and this is a message for the attorney. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who do truly are his delight. You know exactly what you're doing. You know what you're representing. And to the planning board, you do have an opportunity to bring the fruit of righteousness back to life here. This is a true health matter, and this is a spiritual matter as well. The love of money is the root of all evil. And the gentlemen that are sitting behind me to my left, they seem to have taken great pride in representing some of the folks that seek to do us harm. And my folks sitting on the right behind me are the ones who are speaking truth to you, the ones who actually care about the community. And I think the board will do well to search your hearts and to understand exactly what you may be doing to your fellow living souls, your fellow brother, your fellow sister. So please understand that the folks to the left here, they are not dealing truthfully. And the good Lord will take care of that in his own time. But you have the right moment here and the right power in this board meeting to do what is right in front of God, in front of our Lord, in front of your fellow living souls. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Anthony. Any other people on Zoom perhaps, or in the room that wish to comment on this application?
If you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself or raise a hand. Not seeing anyone.
Seeing none, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I will comment, we've heard from several people in the community tonight that, but we did do a new master plan for our town recently. And as part of that master plan update, we are researching the telecommunications issue, and we do plan to have a meeting with Michelle and some of her experts to discuss this matter further. At this point, I'm going to go around board for comments. Peter? Anything? Keep in mind, and I want to, as we go around the board, say your preference for having the false light fixture sticking out of the tower or just the plain poles, for example.
I just, as far as the physical structure is concerned, I would prefer to have the fence and landscaping. Low, for instance, arborvitae. You can get a low-growing arborvitae. They're extremely hardy. You can usually get them guaranteed for at least a year after the planting. But I have to respond to some of the comments that have been made here. I mean, we are at the end of the food chain as far as the Communications Act is concerned. I mean, your U.S. senators, your congresspeople are the ones that you should be talking to, because they are telling us what we have to do. They're the ones that voted for this. Why they did, I mean, I can guess. My guess is as good as yours, but I think it was a bad decision. But the comments about we're in a position to clear it up, we're not. We have no authority, none. The way that the Communications Act was written, we're at the end of the line. No matter what we may think or what we think we would like to do, we are constrained by the way that the law is written, whether we like it or not. I personally don't like it, but we have to comply. The law is the law, and that's what we're doing. It drives me crazy about the data that we get, because I don't think that we get, according to our own consultant, with all respect, we're not getting sufficient information. We work with the data that's provided to us by whoever the provider is. Again, with all respect, I'm sure I am not impugning anyone. All I'm saying is that it's like 100 years ago, Werner Heisinger, he developed the uncertainty principle. He turned the law of physics upside down, because he said, we don't know when you have matter in motion with any degree of certainty, what the net results are. And I read Stephen Hawking's book, and Stephen Hawking spent about 10 pages just talking about Werner Heisinger, and he basically said, I'm not 100% with him, but I think he has a point. And the question is, if we're uncertain, to what degree can we be uncertain and be safe? And that's something personally that's very concerning to me, because of the science. The other side of the coin, again, as far as what we're left with, I've said this before, our hands are tied. I wish everyone here who's spoken tonight, everyone here is concerned. You're not the only ones that are concerned. But the way that the law is written, the way that your U.S. Senator wrote it, the way that both the U.S. Senators wrote it and your congresspeople wrote it, that's what we're living with here today. We don't have the flexibility to say, I don't like this, I don't think we have enough information. They basically have taken us out of the equation of making any kind of reasonable determination. They're basically saying, it's going to come to you, you can look at it, you can hire a consultant, go through the paces, and then you have to approve it. That's basically the way the law is written. And until that law is changed, until the people can go to your senator, go to your congressman and say, this is crazy, it's not going to change. We are not the body to make that change. All we hear basically is go through the paces and comply with the way the law is structured, which I'm sorry to say.
Thanks, Peter. Ben, anything?
Just want to say bravo, Peter. And I'm going to leave the technical aspects up to the experts to guide us. As far as the fence and the landscaping, it would be nice to have some landscaping. If you don't like a chain link fence, maybe a wrought iron fence might look better in that area.
I think we were talking already about the fence material being of the same type as the around the Central Hudson
gas meter.
Yeah.
So they
Up by
would use
the-
that.
Up by Route 9 there.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah, the
then-
only reason we said, could we consider no landscaping was because we were gonna upgrade the fence to what is currently out there.
Right. But right.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we need huge trees or anything, but maybe, as Peter suggested, some arborvitae or something.
It would soften the look.
Soften it a little bit around the fence. All right. Thanks, Ben. Rocco, anything?
Preference would be no lights at the pole as shown. I agree with, should be upgraded fencing and also some landscape and some low plants like Peter mentioned, I think would be appropriate, and it would kind of help to blend things there into the surrounding.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I think that what has been said is already enough. And as far as the landscaping is concerned, yeah, if you guys want the fence as well as the trees or the bushes, that's fine.
All right, thanks. And my 2 cents is I agree with Rocco. I don't think you need to put the extra false lights sticking out of there if you don't need to light that area. It's just,
Okay.
I think.
That sounds like it's the majority of people.
I think it detracts from it. I think it's better, less, it doesn't look. Right, exactly.
Okay.
I think it brings attention to it.
Right, it brings less attention to it if it's just the pole.
Yeah, that's fine.
And color match the cap on top and the fences we discussed, like the gas meter and
Yep.
and some kind of low shrubbery, a couple spots around it.
Okay.
To soften. And I think I've already talked about my other 2 cents, and that's all I've got tonight.
Could you close the public hearing?
Yeah.
I move the planning board determined the proposed Verizon Wireless Winslow Gate Road would not have a significant adverse impact on the environment for the reasons set forth in the seeker negative declaration for an unlisted action dated August 18th, 2022.
Moved and seconded for seeker. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wait, who seconded that?
I second it. I second it again.
All right, thank you.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for Verizon Wireless Winslow Gate Road, subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of, but not limited to, the following 1 through 9.
And 10, modifying the fence as we talked about, and some shrubs around it. And no arms on the pole.
Got it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
It says here, planning board to conduct architectural review. I just want to make note that that was really. what
We already did that.
We got, so just.
Yep.
That's basically included.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's number 10 there. I guess that's what I did.
Yep.
Next up, Boardman Road, 244 Boardman Road. Who's here representing that?
Hello, good evening. My name is Gary Pickening, site acquisition consultant working for Nrf
Hey,
Emissions.
excuse me. We're not
Yeah.
talking to people as they leave. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Derek?
Hello?
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
It's a little tough
My name
to
is Derek Pickening, site acquisition consultant working for Nrf Solutions. We have submitted all of the revised deliverables as requested from the board. I have come here tonight to answer any follow-up questions and also to obtain approval of the site plan, so Dish Network LLC can apply for the required building permit. We have submitted all the revised deliverables. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter this evening. At this time, I would like to open the floor to any questions you might have.
All right, thanks. We go to, this is Kristen's application as well, so Mike.
Yep. So the proposed action is an unlisted action for seeker. The planning board did approve a special use permit for this tower back in 2017. That special use permit did contemplate a third user on the tower. And so this application is in for site plan review only. We had an initial submission that was reviewed for completeness by our consultant, Mike Musso at HDR. Some additional information was requested from the applicant. That information was provided with this submission, including the Nrf Emissions Report and a host of other items. Mike is on the phone, as we know, so he can address some of that additional information as well. And we've set this up either for potential seeker resolution and conditional approval, or for a deferral if, depending on how the board feels after they've heard from everybody on this one. Maybe Mike, could you talk a little bit about your technical memo?
Yes, sure. I'd like to share my screen if that's all right with everybody.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
All right, so Chairman, members of the board, and members of the public, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to go over the outline of the memo we put together, dated August 12th. I think you're all in possession of this at this time. You'll note this is our tech memo, or our second memo. We did provide a memorandum a couple months ago after looking at the initial submittal for site plan by Dish. We did ask for a bunch of additional technical information that we thought was missing. And this memo summarizes our overall review, including the initial and, importantly, the supplemental information that was provided. So just as an overview, I'm just going to hop through to some images on the screen here. Dish is a new carrier to our area. They're a licensed, FCC licensed carrier with, as described in some background, with mandates by the FCC to roll out 2022 and 2023 in the New York market. So there's deadlines that are implicit in their licenses to roll out. HDR's reviewed probably 12 to 15 other similar applications for Dish in the region. Their model at this point is not to build new towers, but to co-locate on existing monopoles and towers in the area. So this board may remember their first work at the Boardman Road site. That's a monopole that's owned and operated by Crown Castle. It's a 105-foot tall monopole. I was at the site recently. It does sit up on a bluff behind Poughkeepsie Day School, as I think you're aware. A special use permit and site plan were approved prior. Verizon was the first co-locator, and AT&T was a second, and now Dish is coming in. And that has been their model as a new carrier to the region. So I'm just gonna hop through what we included in this final memo, give you some background on who Dish are, and I believe this is the first and only application by this applicant at this point. Summary of all the application filings, including information that we had asked for and that we had subsequently received. So I want to go through that for a couple minutes. I think that's very important. I'm first going to jump to the layout, some images of the proposed dish facility. What includes conformance with radio frequency emission standards, their service and coverage. We had asked Dish what their plans are about coming back in front of this board or in front of the ZBA, or maybe under a new chapter that reviews or sets forth a process for looking at wireless facility applications. Within the town of Poughkeepsie and the surrounding areas, including the city and parts of Arlington, I believe, Dish's plans are for 7 additional sites. And again, that's not all within the limits of the town of Poughkeepsie, but that does show what their approach is. And of course, those are going to be targeting existing cell sites. So right now, they're not building new towers. I'm sure that day might come at some point. Other things we looked at, the structural assessment about that monopole, what the design assumptions and loading were, and what the capacity for that monopole that was built not too long ago to accommodate a third carrier. And then at the very end of the memo are findings and recommendations, which I think are important, because I do talk about some things about changes or proposed changes. I do again mention and note our understanding of a code chapter, a robust code chapter that I know the town is committed to, and I think that's great. But I also do note some things about high frequency 5G, millimeter wave technology, which is at 25 gigahertz or 25,000 megahertz. That's not being proposed here. The frequencies that I'll go over are similar to what you've seen on other applications. So first, go through a couple paragraphs on the background of Dish. There's a couple web links here. They are looking for voice and broadband, and they are rolling out around the country. So we've done some research about what their FCC licenses have included within them. You could see some of the FCC conditions of their license. They are rolled out in other markets and regions, but certainly now they're very aggressively putting applications in our region. I'll call it the Hudson Valley, New York, but certainly other parts of the country as well. The filings that were provided, you can see the initial application had what you would expect, a planning board application form, a short secret EAF, some photo simulations were provided, looking at the current monopole with the 2 carriers on it and where Dish would fit in. There were some drawings that came through that we reviewed. There was an as-built survey of the area, and I note that there's been some changes at that property in sort of recent years with solar cells or that solar farm that exists. There was a structural evaluation, all of 1 page, essentially a certification. We asked for some more information there. And then basically just roll into the things that we asked Dish for and what they provided. So the black text that I'm circling here are what our comments were, and the blue text was our review of what was provided. So we did ask for a narrative, as we have done on other applications that we've reviewed, about the rollout in the area, their frequencies, and their licenses. We got copies of the licenses, so these are things we feel are important to have in the file, especially since this is the first application that the town is seeing from this carrier. We do note that there is no coverage at the current time. Dish may be, and maybe the applicant could talk a little bit, if they're doing any sharing agreements with AT&T or T-Mobile. They're doing that in other parts of the country. But basically, they're looking to build their network, really from the ground up. Verizon and AT&T, you know about. T-Mobile and Sprint have since merged into one carrier. So Dish is moving in as a 4th carrier to our area. And as you know too, there have been changes over the years. You know, you remember OmniPoint and VoiceStream later became T-Mobile, Nextel became Sprint. Mergers have come and gone. Metro PCS was acquired by T-Mobile. So this is kind of the ongoing saga of the wireless industry. But Dish, we did confirm that they do have their licenses, and they did provide information about how they're looking to roll out in the region. We wanted some clarifications on the drawing set that was provided, especially with the cross sections, noting Verizon and AT&T. That was important because we wanted to thorough check the structural analysis. So we didn't ask for a full structural analysis where we could look at the loadings, look at the capacities, and you know, that monopole does indeed have capacity to accommodate Dish safely along with the other two co-locators. We also asked for an Nrf Emissions Report, and at first we got a very general statement in the supplemental materials, but then more recently, last week, we did get the full Nrf Emissions Report that clearly indicated the frequencies, the power levels, and I've checked the calculations that are done, and I'll talk about those findings in a minute, but the punchline is that the Dish co-location, if operational, if approved and built and operational, and also considering Verizon and AT&T who exist, the site would remain in compliance. And again, I'll talk to that a little bit more as we get to it, but we were happy at least to get that. I think there was some pushback by the applicant initially, but we did get something on August 11th that we were able to look at it. It was confirmed that a high frequency millimeter wave 5G, that's say in the 25 gigahertz or 25,000 megahertz, is not proposed. That's not being rolled out by Dish at this time. And we're not seeing that, by the way, on any of the other applications that we're working on. They're looking just to stay within their frequencies that I'll talk about in just a minute, 600, 1900, and 2100. Coverage maps are not provided because there are no existing sites right now for Dish. However, we do recommend as a condition, if this board wants to issue the approvals that are requested, that coverage maps can be provided once the network matures, maybe within a certain time frame. So at the end of this tech memo, I talk a little bit more about that. And I think that's very important. This is what the carriers will call an eligible facilities request, meaning they're not changing the dimensions or appreciably changing the aesthetics of a site or the equipment area at the base or the height of the tower. None of that's changing. But we do feel it's just critically important that municipalities can track and understand which carriers are where. They'll have a radio frequency emissions report on file, and also be able to understand when another application comes in, you know, what the service is looking like. So that is a condition that's at the back of our memo. No backup generator is being proposed. At grade is actually a very small pad. We did get, let's see, I think 11 items of supplemental material that I just gave you a little verbal summary on, including full structural analysis and a radio frequency emissions report. We do feel that the submittals are appropriate and reasonable and are complete in order to have the planning board consider taking action on the application. So what are they proposing? They're proposing 3 antennas, 1 in each sector, remote radio head units, which are used to process calls and RF information. Those are behind the proposed panel antennas, and an over voltage protection device, which is typical, and a series of cables that would run from the ground up through the monopole to the antennas. And at grade, within the existing fenced compound, they're looking at a 7-foot by 5-foot platform. So pretty small equipment, just 2 cabinets basically, an ice bridge that connects the cables from those cabinets, lifts them off the ground just a little bit, and then inserts them into the poles so they could be routed up to the antennas. A couple power and meter boxes, all fairly small and typical equipment. The frequencies are confirmed: 600, 1900, and 2100 megahertz. I left a footnote and an FCC citation here regarding 5G services, and Dish makes no bones about it. You can see that on their drawings. This is 5G. At these frequencies, they're considering or marketing their services as 5G at these services or at those frequencies. Just some images. This is looking in plan view. There'll be an equipment platform. The monopole structure itself is in the middle here, the circle. The equipment platform will not flare out wider than the existing arrays, and you can see one panel antenna in each direction. Verizon is at the very top, and AT&T is below. So Dish is being proposed at 90 feet on a 105-foot monopole. So there's no increase in the tower height, no change in the lighting. I did note there is a small low-profile light at the top, and I suspect that was approved with the initial tower build. And the ground-based equipment is going to be very close to the monopole base itself. And here's a little elevation view of their platform, little steel dunnage, and we're talking about 6 feet in height, and a GPS antenna, which is a receive only, that doesn't transmit, and some pretty small equipment, in fact smaller than the AT&T and Verizon equipment. I'm going to go by the coverage. I noted that there's a recommendation at the end that we think it's important that there'll be some condition that as Dish builds this site, they'd be able to provide a service maps and descriptions of how and where they're covering exactly. Conformance with RF emissions criteria. So we were happy to get something more than a one-page certification that went through a series of calculations, assumptions on the frequencies and confirmations of these frequencies, and also the power levels, and making reasonable and conservative assumptions for Verizon and AT&T as well. So they did provide a cumulative analysis for this tower, including what's being proposed for Dish and including what's existing for AT&T and Verizon. And the modeling shows at ground level that it's less than 1% of the current FCC general population exposure limits. So the site would be in compliance. I do want to add a couple notes on this though. Oh, I'm sorry, the cumulative was less than 1%, and Dish only was a third of that. I did look at the calculations and the power levels they provided. I did do some back of the envelope type calculations, and it's not surprising to me to find these levels. I think perhaps to the board, you'd say, geez, what does that mean? How could it be so low? But when you're talking about antennas that generally are low gain, meaning the signal is spread out horizontally, there's less signal that's directed downward. You know, these are directed out towards the horizon, but there is some down tilt, mechanical and physical down tilt of those antennas. But when you do the calculations and you look at the nature of radio frequency of these frequencies, it's not unexpected for me that you'd find a cumulative of about 1% of the general population MPE limit. So I based that on a couple things. In some other municipalities, I have been involved with either coordinating or reviewing field readings at similar tower sites or on rooftop sites, where for whatever reason, specific requests have come in, or most recently at a tower site across the river, there was a recertification that was due. And for the recertification, the tower owner actually took field readings at the general public exposure areas. They walked around with the correct instruments, a shaped probe covering the right frequency ranges of all the carriers on that tower, and they were getting a maximum somewhere in the order of 1.75%. That's a cumulative MPE looking at each frequency band from all the different carriers. I've looked at a few of those over the years for tower sites and also on rooftop sites, either on roof surface behind the antennas or in the near field in front, and then in the neighborhoods around the rooftop sites. So I'm thinking of a hospital in Nyack where that type of information was provided. So my conclusion is, after looking at what was provided last week, that the site will remain in compliance with the general public maximum permissible exposure limit. And it doesn't surprise me that it's around 1%, because that's definitely consistent with what I've seen at other similar co-located sites. Just jumping to another topic altogether is the structural evaluation. Looking at the tower structure itself, the loadings, and assumptions for ice conditions and wind speeds and wind gusts. Looking at not only the tower pole, but the foundation design also, and the max structural rating from all those different components being considered would be about 38%. So that also doesn't surprise me, because when monopoles are designed, they're clearly designed for co-location, and they're, have the right type of foundation being built and the right type of pole structure as well. I do have some qualifications in here regarding the applicant and the applicant's engineers, but I just wanted to acknowledge to the board that HDR did take a look at the structural analysis as well. Okay, last part here, just going through the findings and recommendations. I don't know if I need to read all these verbatim, but there are some recommendations that I put in bold text at the end. This is the one on coverage maps. What we think is a good idea to have the town receive for their files, looking at both the low and high band, 600, 2100 frequency, have those coverage patterns with different signal strengths in vehicle and building or open spaces. And that's what you see for, say, new tower sites from Verizon or AT&T, those carriers that have other sites already in the area. You get a feeling of those service areas that exist, and it helps you determine a need for a new site. And I know this board has done that over the years. You probably did it at this site when Verizon was proposing, and then when AT&T came in for a co-location. A few findings on the eligible facilities request, meaning that the proposal is not substantially changing the cell site, meaning no increase to the tower height, no wider flare out with the dish proposed array, no real changes at the ground-based area either. In fact, they're staying within the existing fence compound. We talked about the structural capacity that was checked. So this is just summarized in the last couple pages, what our general findings are. We also note that this board might have additional comments. I do put forth here an Nrf emissions summary, what I just covered. We believe that the compliance report was done correctly, and it did include the existing Verizon and AT&T sites as well as what's being proposed by Dish. The site would remain in compliance with the FCC MPE criteria. And then a few other things in bold, which we think are best practices. And we do talk about a change. If there's any change, if this is approved, and Dish wants to move to a high frequency, sometimes including millimeter wave services, there's got to be a town approval that would go through. So we think it's important, if you're entertaining any kind of resolution, to consider that. And I think that's it. I think that's, in general, a summary of our memo of what we looked at. And perhaps that answers some of the questions that the board would have. But I'm here if there's additional questions.
All right, thanks for the detailed review, Mike. Andy, do you have anything?
Nothing significant to add.
Yep, it's an existing, everything's there existing as it is, so. All right, this is also on for public hearing, so I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone wish to comment on this application tonight? Come back up, Michelle. And again, I'll note this, the same frequencies as the previous application, regardless of what they're calling it.
Hi, everybody again. Peter Finelli is one of your most protective members for the town. I've watched these meetings, and Peter is always somebody that comes out and says, wait a second. And unfortunately, he has, what's the word, drank the Kool-Aid from the industry that wants you guys, and Andrew Campanelli probably told you, they want you to believe that there's nothing that you can do, that your hands are tied. Now, I hope that Lisa knows that that is not true. And Woodstock is now enjoying, or they will be soon enjoying, because they just passed, the zoning board just passed the new set of ordinances that will protect the town significantly. So that is our area of control, is in operations. And the FCC and the congressional notes afforded that to you, but the town attorneys that left this meeting will not tell you that. So I want to start out saying that. Secondly, I was curious if Lisa looked into whether the proposed small telecommunications facilities at Winslow Gate Road and 911 Raymond Avenue, and it will also be addressing this 5G thing, is a carrier hub site for the carrier's densification agenda. Mike Musso said, well, this is really a Marist problem. So anyway, that would allow the licensee to serve unrelated customers on different premises. And these antennae are not customer premises equipment. Okay, they are instead part of the carrier's network, to which Mr. Musso alluded, for the purpose of densification. So regarding the TC Act of 1996, base stations are not customer end equipment and would not enjoy special consideration. So that has to be investigated. I still maintain that we have not had probative evidence of need. We got propagation maps and charts. That is not a drive test where you'll have dropped calls. And that's what they don't want you to do. The telecoms do not want you to do that, because that will show up that we can make a phone call. It's not a big deal. So the TCA protects the telecoms to make sure that, yes, we'll have phone calls. Now, we all know about the general authority. I've mentioned this before. The section 704A7A, preservation of local zoning authority. Okay, I've mentioned this before. Lastly, the telecommunications facility shot clocks, the basis for the shot clocks, because I know you're all like rushing about this, defined in FCC 18-133, no environmental review needed. It was vacated on the 5th of December 2019. So any federally mandated shot clock for wireless telecommunications facilities are not consistent with the legislative intent of the 1996 Telecommunications Act. They're telling you got to rush. You got a certain amount of time. You got to speak to Paul or hopefully Andrew and get these questions answered so that you're not afraid of being sued, because they have no case. So, thank you for listening again.
All right, thanks. Any others wish to comment on this application tonight? your name for the record, please.
Okay. So my name is Brian Sawicki, and I am a resident of Poughkeepsie, New York. And as my peers back there just mentioned some of the data, I'm also concerned about the dish tower proposal being near the Poughkeepsie Day School, and also it's a few miles away from Spattenkill High School, and I also happen to live in the area. So aside from the phone calls they mentioned earlier, I'm also concerned about the long-term effects of radiation coming from not just from the 5G frequency that we measured from the towers, also from Bluetooth devices such as earbuds, headsets, and I also, along with other residents, like to travel in the area and go running and go to the local library on Boardman Road, and I'd like to kindly remind that long-term effects are concerning, especially with tumors being found in some of the testing. And I'd also like to make it clear, if the tower would be built, I would be avoiding the area in the near future. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Just to be clear, this is an existing tower with the co-location here.
Oh, excuse me if I'm a little scattered, but when I got here, my heart rate was 60 beats per minute, and now it's almost 100. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the tower in the driveway. So I was just curious. Mr. Musso, is that his name? The man who presented? Okay.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to pronounce it wrong. I'm a school teacher, and I know names are important. I'm just wondering if anybody's ever measured the radiation coming out of that, because we did once, and it was pretty horrendous, and y'all have to be in here. I could not work in this building. I could tell you that right now from the 20 minutes that I've been here. I think all of this stuff, I don't know if we're looking ahead enough. We need to look ahead and, have a plan. Like, how much can we take? Something that maybe you all have also noticed, that I've noticed listening for the last few times, a lot of these towers are going up at or near schools. I know the school that's closest to my house just got one, and the trooper barracks that's close to my house just got one, and now I can't even get a phone call at home on my cell phone, because I think there are now too many towers in the area, because they interfere with each other, and that's out there in the research. I've read it. I didn't make it up. I told you the first time that I was here that there are like almost 200 scientists that got together and all did research on this radiation and said that it is harmful to all living things, which we are all one of. And I totally get like your concern about the law and being pushed around, because we've had a lot of that in the last couple of years, not just here, but like in our whole country and all over the world. But I would just like to tell you, we do have a state constitution, and we also have the Nuremberg Code. So we have some pretty big like law things to fall back on. And what we're doing, if we don't have an idea of how this is going to affect us, and we just keep putting up tower after tower after tower, is we're experimenting. We are the guinea pigs. We've been the guinea pigs for too long, and I, for one, don't want to be one anymore, so maybe I'll have to stop shopping in Poughkeepsie. I don't know. But we have the right not to be lab rats. We have that right in our state constitution, we have that right in our United States Constitution, and we have that right in the Nuremberg Code. And I just think that maybe before we just keep this tower, sure, go ahead, that we should get that group together and, do a plan. Like, what can we handle? What is dangerous? Mr. Musso said something about 1%. I don't know what he was talking about 1% of, but I'd like to know how that compares to this because I'm having trouble even talking. So, anyway, please, look to the future. None of you, God willing, are passing away tomorrow. So you probably all have children, and some of you grandchildren, and maybe even great-grandchildren, and you need to consider all of us. And remember that a lot of those towers are going up at and near schools.
All right,
Thanks.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Yep. Come on up.
Of course. I'm gonna have fun. I mean,
Sure.
come on.
Come on up.
So, I've been here, what, 3 times, 4 times now?
You just
And,
just gotta speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I've been here, what, 3 or 4 times now, and this is the first time I realized I feel like crap in this room. My head feels like it's in a vice. My heart's pounding. So I took Michelle's meter, and I'm looking at this, and we have microwatts. I'm supposed to make this louder. That's the radiation. Microwatts per meter squared is supposed to be no more than 5 outside. And in here, it's fluctuating between 50 and 110. So this is what you're living with in here. I want to tell you a story. So I'm a functional nutritionist, so I like to take things back to the basics. In the mid-1750s, there was a British Royal Navy surgeon who wanted to find out why sailors were dying of scurvy. And he set up an experiment and discovered that there was something in citrus that he then called no scurvy acid, which became ascorbic acid, and discovered that vitamin C was the key for preventing scurvy. It took 50 years for the British Royal Navy to mandate that every ship leaving port would have limes, which incidentally is why the British were nicknamed limeys. But the point is that it took 50 years of egos and foot dragging, and how many people died before somebody said, enough? So the question is, how many bodies, how many people have to walk into a room? It took me 4 times to realize, oh my God, I feel like crap in here. It's gotta be because we're fluctuating between these stupid levels of radiation. Why can't this technology be made safe? Why? Because it costs too much? Well, what is the cost? I mean, sir, Peter, I know you have concerns, but not enough. People aren't sick enough. People aren't aware enough. How many have to get sick before you say enough? And you mean to tell me that you don't control what goes on in your town? You can't say, okay, Congress gave us this, but this is our town. We want to keep our people safe. You mean to tell me that this isn't just about greed, it's about courage? What does it take to step up to the plate? There's a part of me that makes me think, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say, and I apologize if you're offended, but there's a part of me that feels that you guys are all atheists because Jesus Christ wouldn't do this. And the bottom line is that if Jesus is your guy, then maybe you need to review what it means to be a Christian and what it means to embrace the Christian concept, the Christian ethic, the Christian idea of what it means to be. Because that's what our job is here. Not to walk into a room and have somebody wave a dollar bill and say, okay, I'll roll over. Or to say, I'm afraid they're going to take my job away if I give. I mean, I can't believe you gave that skunk. I don't want to malign skunks, they're cute. But when they're scared, what do? They stink. And that guy stinks because they're killing their own customers. What does that tell you about the ethics of a company that kills its own customers?
Anyone else wish to comment on this application? Anyone on the Zoom call? You can always wave your arm or your hand on Zoom as well. We'll look through that.
Doesn't look like it.
Seeing none, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks for your comments, everyone. As I said, we are working with the new committee that we're going to try to take deeper looks at this telecommunications code for the town. Ben, do you have any comments? Go around the board now. Any further comments on this one?
No.
Peter, anything further? Nicole?
No.
Rocco?
No.
Yep, we asked our consultant to take a good, close look at this, and Mike did. And it meets a third of 1% of the guidelines. The guidelines may be wrong, as Michelle has pointed out, but we need to understand that going forward. And that's where we're at for today.
I move that the planning board hereby determine that the 244 Boardman Road Dish Network 5G would not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and that no environmental impact statement would be required for the reasons set forth in the seeker negative declaration for an unlisted action dated August 18th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded for seeker. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for 244 Boardman Road Dish Network 5G, subject to the following. Respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of but not limited to the following 1 through 4.
And I just want to double check for the HDR technical reviews. That includes his conditions of
Yeah, those comments.
coverage maps and
Those are all
and service areas that we want.
conditions, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. From an architectural standpoint, it's just, we've looked at this. Anyone have any architectural comments on this?
Nope.
I move we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is mobile station at 3480 North Road. Who's here representing mobile station? Come on down.
Good evening, Tom Kivett, representing Mobile. So I just want to go over the project updates. We have installed a trench drain on Winslow Gate Road as part of TFS. That was a request from the board.
Okay.
We're also making repairs to the meter pit in order to do the backflow testing. That'll happen in the next few weeks, and that'll be submitted to the water department. And then from there on out, it'll be a yearly thing. We do intend on submitting our application for our next month's meeting. I have some updates here from the engineer. If I'm allowed to share on Zoom, I have this up here.
Yep.
One second here. So very briefly, this is going to be part of next month's submission, but we had taken the July 13 comments and made some improvements to the site. Among them are the planted divider for the drive-through exit. We've added this, the arrows on the site to improve circulation. We have added 4 additional green giants to the south of the walkway to help screening of the drive-through. It's not shown on here now, but there will also be a gate to close off the vehicle access on that part of the property. So that's all I have for now. Again, this will be in next month's submission. I would like to talk about the architectural review. We do have, we do have our application into the zoning board for signage for next month. So they'll be taking care of the signage for that property. I don't know if there are any comments on the architectural aspects of this job or project. But these are, just to go over, this is the existing brick on the building as it is now, represented in the white. We'll be adding an architectural band across the top with some color. And then we have a Nichiha, it's a fiber cement panel. That's a typical of our stores for Chestnut Markets. It's a very heavy, it's a wood look, and then an accent entryway. It doesn't exist now. What exists now is a light box. It was an old mobile on the run sign. Those went out of business, and then we updated with our Chestnut Market sign. So this is in front of the zoning board for their review.
Any quick comments from board members on the architecture? Right, yeah, like to keep the hip roof like that, so.
We did get the comments on the lighting. I'd like to discuss some of those. I know we are, again, going to resubmit. We have an updated lighting package that we could submit for Monday. We had previously a project, not in this town, but within Dutchess County, that was similar to this, where they addressed the lighting under the canopy, and they had made mention that 5-foot candles is what they think should be the lighting levels under the canopy. We think that is very low. What we have right now is 20-foot candles under the canopy. I went around town last night, spent a few hours taking light measurements from various stations. So to benefit my argument is I'm delighted to say that our station here is the lowest foot candles of any similar size canopy within the town. So we have 20-foot candles average. A few other stations around town, we're averaging this one's 60.5-foot candles at 252 Innis. 190 Innis was 79-foot candles under the canopy at ground level. 813 Main Street averaged 47-foot candles. 2545 South Road, 31-foot candles. And then 1942 South Road averaged 81-foot candles under the canopy. There are stipulations within the joint IDA and IES guidelines that provide increased lighting underneath fuel canopies. The calculations are a little confusing. I spent some time trying to do the math yesterday. It's not easy to wrap my head around it. I mean, they have lumens from the light versus lumens on the ground, foot candles on the ground. There are stipulations that will allow for increased lighting underneath certain areas, such as the canopy. There are also values for drive-throughs. So I'm hoping that the board would take that into consideration for this application. In this, the Dark Sky Society says an average of 20-foot candles horizontal at the ground level, which is what we have under the canopy right now. I don't know if you would be open, instead of doing the lighting upgrades for the site and replacing everything that we have now, to simply let us keep what we have existing.
That was one thing that wasn't clear to us, if what you had proposed was all new things or.
Yeah, it was all new lighting.
Okay,
so we
still had
right.
LED lights under the canopy already.
Right, we have them right now underneath the canopy. I took some measurements from around the lot last night as well, just for an average to get an idea of what the lighting levels exist as now. Underneath the double light, this is all at ground level.
Okay.
This is correct, excuse me.
Mike, can I ask you, with this particular situation, wouldn't lighting technically be a zoning issue?
So zoning, the code only addresses whether the foot candle's at the property line. Other foot candle issues are this board's in terms of glare and things like that.
Okay.
Is that correct, Eric and Mike?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, typically it would be part of this board's purview to look at how bright the light is underneath under the canopy.
So as it exists today, the lighting levels here, I just took spot checks under some of the lights on site, and this is the readings that I got, which is lower than what the 1-foot candle for parking areas and such. So we would like the board to take that into consideration with this application.
And I'll try to get up there at night before the next meeting and see what it looks like as well.
Yep.
So what you're looking for, just so I'm clear, is to keep what you have there, which was recently updated, the lights?
Correct. I'm not sure when they were updated.
Okay.
The fixtures that I have taken pictures of under the canopy, they seem to be older LED models. I can't find them.
They're not brand new for sure. But Don't know when they changed it.
Okay. And if I can just, you said you submitted to the ZBA, slightly off topic,
Yes.
for signage.
Correct.
I don't know if part of your submission packet was what the ZBA likes to see, and I'll just maybe save you an extra trip if you haven't done it yet,
No,
is what you're proposing, what code would be, and then maybe something in between. So
Okay.
they look for 3 different things to get an idea of, if you're talking about just number and your sign is fine, that your size is fine,
Right.
then that's not applicable.
Okay,
But if you're talking about sizes that are larger than what's allowed, they like to see the 3 gradients.
right. We have our GNS, I believe they're, local. so
Okay, yep, yeah, they're familiar.
yeah,
Okay.
They're handling that for us, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. All right, go to Eric for his recommendation tonight.
So the submittal that was received and reviewed consisted only of the lighting submittal, and also a example of owner authorizations that was requested. Otherwise, nothing has changed from the July submittal. Nothing was received that was different from the previous. So that was what was reviewed for tonight's meeting. The review for tonight's meeting does suggest that the lighting appeared to be excessive, particularly at the canopy. There were some concerns about glare. Dutchess County Planning also had a number of comments in that regard, and indicated that if the board were to take action on it tonight, that it would have to overcome their recommended conditions by a supermajority of the full membership. Their recommendations was to reduce the average foot candle level in the parking lot to 1.0 and the maximum foot candle level under the gas canopy below 5.0. So the staff recommend the board, since it's not a complete submittal and does not address the July comments, staff's recommendation is to defer the application, but with discussion and comments to be added to those from July.
All right, thanks, Eric. Andy, anything from engineering?
I don't have any
Left, okay. In that case, I move we open the public hearing for this.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone on the call or in the audience that wishes to comment on this application? Can you unshare your screen for a minute?
Yes.
Take a look at anybody waving their hands.
Not seeing any hands being raised.
And you said you want to submit for Monday?
Yes, we got everything ready. It's another tight deadline, so we prepared in advance.
Is that going to address all of the comments from July as well? I mean, it'll be a complete
Correct, yes,
resubmittal?
so that's what the plan that I showed you tonight was the July 13th comments response.
And will there, I guess the thought also was that with only a couple of days between now and Monday, there's a lot of new comments and the board hasn't even discussed the application yet. And the staff was thinking it would make sense to have, rather than deal with pieces of the application each month,
Right.
to have a comprehensive submittal addressing the comments through the end of tonight's meeting, which hasn't yet concluded.
Right.
Before coming back.
Right, I don't like piecemealing anything either, but this is, we got a tight deadline here, so.
So will it address all of tonight's comments as well? Including because I know it often takes quite a while to produce revised photometrics. We have applicants tell us it often takes weeks.
Right, we do have updated photometrics, but they are still, they're lower than the previous submission for this month, but they're still above what is existing on site right now. So we will submit that for review, but they added more cutoff fixtures for the wall packs, for instance, and they're looking for more dark sky compliant fixtures. So we will submit that for Monday as well, because I was preparing that in advance this week for Monday's submission, because we received the comments on this Monday, and we were working hard to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to overlight these things. All right, I move we adjourn the public hearing then to September 15th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Let's go around the board for additional comments? Rocco, anything?
Nothing new, thank you.
Nicole?
No.
Ben?
Nothing?
Peter? Same here. I mean, I like the fact that you channelized that thing that kind of answers our issues with the comments there. I do see Alex online. Alex, you reviewed this?
Yes, there were some, excuse me, we did receive comments back from, I apologize, from AKRF.
Yep.
With regard
I just
to
noticed
traffic
it
responses
out there.
that came in after the last meeting, or
Yeah.
at the last meeting.
So I just want to give you the opportunity, Alex, to say what.
Sure. Sure. Based on our last review, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Based on our last review, it appears that all of our previous traffic comments have been addressed. The only outstanding comments that we had at this time were based on the site plan, and just based on the presentation that was made a few minutes ago, it appears that those site plan comments have been addressed. Of course, when you receive the full set of site plan, we'll review it in more detail, but from a broad brush look, it looks like those comments, those few outstanding comments have been addressed.
Okay, great. Thanks for hanging in there, looking at that.
No problem at all, thank you.
All right, let's see, where was I? Yeah, everybody went around. And you've done, yep, good with the landscaping, appreciate that. And the sidewalk, crosswalk thing there. So you're anticipating that gate would be only there for
deliveries,
for
yeah.
deliveries.
So it gets locked, and then
unlock
we'll,
it when the truck needs to come in.
yeah.
Okay, that forces channelizes everybody in through the other entrance.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like you've addressed a lot of issues. All right, this time.
I move that the planning board defer action on this application and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, included but not limited to the following 1 through 10.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, thanks again.
All right, thanks, have a good night.
See you next month.
Thank you, have a good night, everyone.
Yep, take care, thanks. Take care. All right, next up is storage depot expansion. Kelly, you out there?
Yes, we're here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were previously before this board back in June, and at that time we had received some preliminary comments from the planning board and its consultants. Much of the comments have been addressed in a subsequent submission, and the board had asked us to focus tonight on our most recent submission, which was the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, and some of the traffic transportation related comments that you had at the last meeting. So I do have a presentation, but I think for purposes of efficiency and time, you have a long agenda that I won't present if you don't need that. I think our focus tonight is really just to discuss the stormwater and the traffic information that we gave you from Phil Greeley's office. So I'll take my cues from you on how you want us to proceed.
Yeah, that sounds good, Kelly. We've seen your layout there, and that's not changing.
Okay. I'll just continue and go over, we did provide you with correspondence from Phil Greeley's office that looked at the intersection at 55, the signalized intersection, which is what we were asked to do, and provide you with some anticipated traffic information, which I think, I'm not sure if Andy's office has looked at it or not, but there was, very de minimis increases in traffic based on this use. It's not a high intensity use. We also looked at the accident information at that signalized intersection, and over the period from 2017 to 2022, there were 5 reported incidents that we received from DOT, and we provided you with those copies. One of the questions I think had to do with some on-site traffic circulation and potential accidents, which we don't have a record of. I can't report that there are any significant traffic or traffic pedestrian accidents that have been, have occurred on site. We certainly would know about those if there were some that rose to the magnitude of the owner needing to be aware of it, but there's no known incidents on that site. It operates, very efficiently with the internal businesses that are there now and the rail trail. So if there isn't any additional information on the traffic circulation and the DOT information, or the Phil Greeley letter, I can let Brittany go over the stormwater pollution plan.
All right, let's move on to that.
So a lot of the comments were basically mainly, there wasn't enough water quality volume provided, so we ended up just increasing the chamber size. Same area of the practices were the same, it's just the units we're using are just gonna be larger. So it's just providing more storage, and that really accounted for a lot of the issues. We did provide, or we will be providing an updated SWIP with the missing information, like the infiltration rates and all of that. But it seems like just increasing the chamber size will account for a lot of the issues.
All right, thanks. All right, so this is another one that Kristen reviewed.
Yeah.
What's department's recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, I think they covered a lot of what Kristen had looked at in her report as well. I mean, I think the basic question right now is really a question about the SWIP and whether it's ready or not for seeker determination. This was not a complete submittal this time, so the other question I would have before we close the public hearing later on would be, when you would be ready to come back and, provide a full response to comments and revised plans. I mean, if it's not Monday, then we'd prefer to wait until October.
I think we're ready for Monday. We've actually prepared all the responses to the prior comments, and so we received a few additional comments that LRC has already addressed. So
yes,
we're ready to submit on Monday.
So the plan is to submit for Monday, okay.
All right.
Andy, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, there's the increase in the chamber size is gonna help, with our comments about the water quality volume required, but I think a bigger issue for me is the soil testing and the rates that we're seeing. I need to see those results and then verify the locations that they correspond with the underground infiltration chambers before we move forward. I need to see that
So you
to
think we're
verify.
not ready for seeker then?
I would like to wait to see those results, yeah.
Okay, and they're submitting next month again, so we can go to that. All right, thanks, Andy. I move that we open a public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone on the call that wish to comment on the storage depot application? I see mostly developers out there at this point.
Yeah. Again, if you're on the Zoom, just raise your hand, wave at us, unmute. Not seeing anyone.
Seeing that, I move we adjourn the hearing to September 15th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Go on board for comments. Peter?
The same comment I had the last time we reviewed this proposal, and that is, you have two buildings that are longer than a football field and two lanes between each building that are 30 feet wide. That's a huge amount of snow to move. And I don't see where it's being put on the site. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of yards of snow. And I don't see any place on this site where you're gonna put it and still have access around those buildings.
They may have to cart some off. Any comments on that, Kelly?
We'll show snow storage area. We're pretty efficient at this based on the other facilities that we own. And so we can show the snow storage area on the plan.
And we do have an area in the back along the outdoor storage area that is behind that area and behind the building that's up against the hillside that we felt was the appropriate area and size to make that work.
Yeah, you did show snow storage areas, but they're way inadequate for the amount of snow that you would have to push. There's no possible way that the amount of space that you showed for snow storage could accommodate like 600-700 yards of snow.
But we kind of, I'm sure you've heard this before, I mean, we've become a society where we have snow storage areas and then we all recognize that there's certain snow events where snow has to be removed, or there's,
Okay.
smaller snow events where snow has to be removed. And I think it's a generally accepted, practice now in most commercial developments and storage facilities and so forth like this, where we're removing, snow.
I
And
think-
it's just a customary practice.
All right, then if we'll make it a condition of approval that you will, based on a certain amount of snowfall, that you will make arrangements to remove the snow as necessary from the site.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would be concerned about that. It's certainly in our best interest to make sure that the site is accessible, not only by the tenants, but by emergency services. And I think, again, you know, this owner maintains a whole series of self-storage facilities, many of which are in the town of Poughkeepsie. And again, it's very customary that we're removing snow these days.
Good, then we'll just make it a condition of approval. It's as simple as that.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Anything else? Ben, anything?
Nothing at this time.
Nicole?
No.
Rocco?
Nothing.
Yep, same thing, I guess you'll have Andy look at the SWIP a bit more in your next application, and we'll go from there.
Very good.
Yep.
I move the planning board defer action on this application and direct the applicant to respond to comments in writing of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, included but not limited to the following 1 through 12.
13 also?
One out of 13 to make snow clearing one of the conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Great.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we got 511 Height Avenue. Back.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lindsay McGuire, and I am the civil engineer on this project, presenting on behalf of the owners who submitted an application essentially to repurpose the back of their property into 4 parking spaces, that would be acceptable to the public. Right now, this is a mixed-use commercial and residential property that became landlocked in the 1970s when the arterial street parking was removed. So as a result, they've had just a friendly agreement with the neighboring property, Davies Hardware, to have their customers park there and use that facility. That's worked great for years. But now that they're looking to sell the property, they've run into issues with potential buyers looking for some type of permanent agreement. They have spoken with Davies Hardware to see if they can arrange to purchase some of their property or to have a permanent rental agreement in place. That arrangement hasn't been made, but instead they agreed to have a revocable license to use the property for the life that the Davies owns that property. That's still not working for a bunch of the potential buyers. So we are looking to repurpose the back of Morgan's Florist to act as parking for this purpose. And we presented in the beginning of the year. There was obviously some engineering feedback, but I think the main, holdup was some of the legal agreement. And I know Lisa Kopp, you're here tonight, and you were talking with the owner's attorney about tightening up a lot of the language, and my understanding that that's been accomplished, and we've addressed most of the comments. We did get a couple engineering comments back this week that we can certainly address, and that's where we stand with everything right now.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. Lisa, you care to comment on how that's proceeded?
Sure. I circulated earlier today to the board some clean copies of the current versions of the agreements. There's 2 of them. One is the permanent easement, the other is a revocable license agreement. And as far as I'm concerned, the terms of the agreements are fine. The agreements were submitted with some changes to Davies Hardware, I understand from counsel for the applicant last month, and they have not heard any objection. So I'm assuming that Davies Hardware is comfortable with the changes that we've gone through. But I have not yet received that final confirmation. But as far as I'm concerned and the applicant's attorney is concerned, we're both okay with these documents as you have them.
Okay, so you're good with if we do a conditional approval. Sounds
Except,
like-
I know Andy had some
I have
comments.
some concerns,
Unless
yeah.
we have issues there. First, I was gonna go to Mike, because one of Kristen's.
I was gonna punt it to Andy. No, the main issues were that, and then I think the question is whether or not we're ready to do seeker or not, and so
Okay.
that gets to Andy's concern.
Yeah,
Right,
so,
it's,
my concerns, are primarily related to site topography, and with respect to drainage, and the curbing that's proposed in the back. We wanna make sure, I haven't seen anything, with that respect, so we wanna make sure that there's no, ponding of water along that curb line, and there isn't gonna be any kind of hazardous situations with respect to freezing water. And you also are looking for, we see that you're providing ADA spaces, which is great, but we need to see an accessible, ADA accessible route, from those spaces into the building, which also requires, site topography, spot elevations. So I don't feel like we have the information to proceed at this point.
Maybe hold off on that until next time then. It looks like you are you ready to submit again for September meeting? Lindsay?
I'm sorry, if that directed towards me, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, when do you think you're planning to do your next submittal for our September meeting? Or
It would probably need to be October. And would I be able to talk about that last comment that came through? Because I know that came through, I think, as a result of Tuesday's site visit, about the full pathway from is it from the ADA spaces you're looking for, or for the 4 proposed spaces on Morgan's property?
From the ADA.
Well, so there's two, right, so the accessible route needs to be from the ADA spaces to the building, but we also need topography for the spaces in the back to show proper drainage.
Right, and yeah, I understand that. The ADA spaces, we've got that accessible route, and I think somebody had made a comment that they wanted to see, instead of the 5 foot wide for parallel parking, they wanted to see 8 foot wide. But there is the entrance right there, attached to that 8 foot wide accessible parking in the, if you're looking at the plan, on the northwest corner of that building.
Is
So
there a
it's
ramp,
actually right there.
is there a ramp from the loading zone to the building, or is it a step?
It's just kind of flat in, I thought, wasn't it?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I believe it might be a couple inches.
Yeah, because we have to see,
I-
we have to see that route from the space all the way to the building, to the front door.
Can I just ask, why is there 2 handicap spaces provided for this? Is that?
Only one would be required.
Only one's required, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh.
So maybe, so
Okay.
if that
One
helps,
is better.
if that helps the plan,
Yeah, Lindsay,
layout.
maybe if you're submitting for October, there's a little bit of time, maybe we can, do an offline meeting with
Absolutely.
Andy and with someone from the building department, just to verify, exactly what that needs to be.
Clean up exactly where.
Yeah,
where you wanna
so that
go.
next time you're really ready to,
I think that's a good idea.
finalize
Yeah,
this.
absolutely, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Right, sounds good. All right. At this point, I'll move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone on the call wish to, on the Zoom? What about the comment on this?
Maybe they want it.
Steve, any comment on 511? No.
Statement on that.
He's getting prepared. All right, in that case, I move we adjourn the public hearing to October 20th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, go around quick, Peter, anything?
I read the easement agreement and I read the revocable license agreement. If they're okay with the principals, they're okay with me. Would they be a condition of approval, by the way?
The final
Fully
execution of them.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and we would not only, the execution of, but the recording with Dutchess County.
Great, okay, thanks.
All right, Ben? Rocco?
No.
And Nicole?
No.
All right, I'm gonna wish you well. Looks like you have a plan going forward, but just get that stuff cleaned up as with Andy and move forward in October.
Okay.
I move the planning board defer further action on this application and direct the applicant to respond to comments in writing of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies included but not limited to the following 1 through 4.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. This is your copy.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks. We'll see
Thank
you,
you.
see you in October. A couple of adjournments. Number 7 is all space self-storage facility expansion. I move we adjourn it to September 15th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up, item 8, Guardian Self-Storage on Love Road. I move we adjourn the public hearing to September 15th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I move we allow public comment on any other items on tonight's agenda, and we will stick with our 3-minute limit that we've been using tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone wish to comment on any other remaining agenda items? Seeing none, I move we resume the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is Salt Point,
No.
Salt Point Center is off the agenda.
Off the agenda.
I mentioned that at the beginning. Next up is the Vassar College tennis courts.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. For the record, my name is Marianne Begamon, and I'm the Dean of Strategic Planning and Academic Resources at Vassar College. Thank you, Chairman Whitehead, members of the Planning Board, and town staff for reviewing our plans to construct 8 new tennis courts at Vassar. These courts will serve, no pun intended, the practice and competition needs of men's and women's tennis teams and provide space where our PE classes can be taught. The new courts are going to be located next to our existing field house and athletic and fitness center on the east side of campus. This location was chosen because it allows the tennis players to use the bathrooms, showers, locker rooms, drinking water storage, and athletic training facilities that are already present in Walker Fieldhouse. Furthermore, in inclement weather, players can easily move inside and continue their matches on our indoor courts, which are in the fieldhouse. The Joslyn tennis courts near the Arlington Roundabout, where the teams currently play, have none of the amenities that I've just described. And this creates inefficiencies for our students and visiting teams, as well as our staff. The courts also do not provide the safe and high-quality experience that we're striving to provide for our varsity student athletes. So we look forward to being able to offer our students a first-rate collegiate tennis playing experience with this project, and I thank you again for reviewing the plans. I'll be turning it over to Ken Casamento, who's on Zoom, and he'll walk through them and be able to address any specific questions for you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen quick here.
Yep, go ahead, Ken.
Marianne has covered it pretty well. So this is an aerial shot of the location for the proposed tennis courts around the Walker Fieldhouse. As you can see, there's about 138 total spaces immediately adjacent to the Walker Fieldhouse area. This is kind of a line that gives us a rough plan of our actual project area as it would fall onto the existing topography and aerial mapping. The nearest residence is approximately about almost 900 feet, 890 feet past the observatory to the very top of the project area where it would meet grade up in this area up here. So we're well far away from any adjoining property owners or anything like that to worry about any of the noises or any of that. The proposed court is 8 courts. They're post-tension courts. They're going to have a 10-foot perimeter fence. The interior fencing that is along this side here and here in the middle allows for a center way for the court, the players, and the coaches, and that is a 4-foot fence line. The main access point to the actual courts are through the middle here. There are 2 gates, one on the northwest and one on the southwest corner, that are really there for maintenance only. And the purpose of those are to be able to, while maintenance is there, blowing out leaves, blowing out different debris or any other activities to be able to go in and out there. They're not really for pedestrian or vehicular access into those points. There is a proposed small shed that's over here. That's a 20 by 16 or 10, I believe, that will be housing, various different supplies that they may need on and off to be able to move them in and off the tennis courts as we go. The project does provide lighting in the area. They're relocating approximately 7 of the existing lights that go up to New Observatory along the road, and there are some along the path here out for evening or that. But there is no court lighting. There is no intended lighting for the courts for night play or anything like that.
Okay.
There's a little bit of landscaping, but not a lot, mainly because the current plan of leaf and debris falling onto the courts, we're trying to keep the trees to the upper areas away from the court area, and then just low vegetation down along around the side over here, but mainly grassed areas. There is some rock on the project area that's over here. So as noted by staff's comments, we're going to evaluate the type of rock and what it is as we get into construction a little more to determine if the rock could require blasting or that. But we're far enough away, and we would adhere to all the town rules and regulations relative to that. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
All right, thanks, Ken. Eric, you reviewed this?
Sure. Let's see, on the 255 acre site, this involves about 2.39 acres disturbance, which does require a SWIP. Originally, the application, there were some possible triggers that might have required some time for review, including a response from the SHPO and the blasting and such, but those actually have turned out to be addressed. So although you have a resolution, so there's 2 options for the board. If you're comfortable with moving, the first option originally was to declare your intent to be lead agency and to conduct a coordinated environmental review and to then circulate the application. However, with the additional information received, including just recently the historical sign-off from SHPO, we've provided you with resolution and a negative declaration for your consideration if the review suggests that's an option to move ahead with. That would be an uncoordinated review, so the resolutions are structured slightly differently. So that said, it's a relatively small project. We received a letter today from Aspen Environmental that was forwarded to the board, indicating that the report on species, that it did identify some species of concern in the vicinity, and she confirmed that indeed the project would not be expected to have any adverse impacts on that. She can, yes, she is on. Okay, so she can.
Yeah, I see Carol on.
I know Andy had a couple of concerns about the SWIP, I think, and so we feel that there's a few questions that we have that I feel could be handled as conditions of approval for planning, and then I'll let Andy and Carol address their comments.
Yep. Andy, start with you.
Sure. So we have some comments related to some utility crossings and installation specific to drainage and existing sewer lines that should be addressed just to make sure that all the proper separations are provided. There's also, the proposed grading for the new Observatory Road is steep in some locations. The access, the longitudinal slope meets requirements, but the side slopes are steep in some areas. So we're looking for some guide rail, just some protection for that. And then as far as the SWIP review, we do have some questions, but I think we have enough information that we could move forward with the secret determination tonight.
Okay, thanks. So we're not covering any easements or anything in this area?
No.
All right, great. Carol, I see you're on, and we have your letter.
Yes, I just found basically the habitat that is existing in that location is primarily mowed lawn with some landscaping trees. They're likely not potential habitat, but there is a note on the plan, or there will be a note on the plan. We have to make sure that is added, indicating the tree felling restriction timeframe. And the other species are not protected per se in the area, but they do not utilize the habitat that is being disturbed. There's not any significant adverse impact to the species expected. And similarly with the wetlands and the aquatic resources, the streams, they are a considerable distance from there. And as long as the stormwater management procedures are being followed, everything should be fine. So no significant ecological concerns. All good to go.
Okay, great. That sounds good, because it is an area of Casper Hill Creek and the pond there. Lake there, so. Good. Thanks for the review. It's on for public hearing, or let's see. At this point, I'm gonna move that we waive the public hearing for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Let's go around the board for comments. Start with Rocco this time.
Okay. Ken, a couple of quick things, more informational. I see that the new tennis courts might go into the existing parking spaces. How many of those spaces will be eliminated?
We're gonna lose 8 spaces.
8 spaces, okay, yeah, I thought
We
I read
actually
that.
may lose 9 when you look at, the building department's comment of wanting to add a handicap space closer to the, the area, just in case there is a handicap person that doesn't wanna come watch or come to the event. So we are gonna add a handicap space, so we'll end up losing 9 total.
Okay.
But Vassar has done a really good job of maintaining and orchestrating their events and their event planning with security. So we felt, and Vassar's felt, that would not impact them in their parking requirements in that area during any of the special events that they would need.
Okay. Secondly, kind of follow-up to that is that I believe I've heard that Vassar is looking at doing a campus-wide implementation of EV charging stations, and I assume that this area would be included in that, especially since the competition will move there. You're going to have more people coming in that might have electric vehicles.
At the moment, we're not proposing to put those there, but there is a campus-wide plan afoot. Marion may know better when that may come to fruition exactly, but they're still vetting different suppliers and making sure that it works with campus, and then picking prime locations so they can do that all as one implementation across the campus.
All right, do we have a date on that?
I would.
Time frame, it doesn't have to be exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as we're adding fully new lots, we're adding the EV stations to new lots that we're adding. So with part of the faculty housing project, which you're familiar
Right,
with,
yes.
we're adding EV charging there. We have another lot going in behind Kenyon Hall, and we're stubbing in for EV chargers at that location. But this is not a new lot that we're putting in, so, you know, as we're modifying, we're adding.
Okay, so when will your campus-wide study implementation approximately, are we talking this year?
This year.
Okay, this year. Now, I see that there were some bleachers added. How big are they, and how many people?
So the bleachers are only 1 or 2 seat bleachers. They're approximately, 15 feet long, give or take, and there are about 4 of them there. There aren't many. Part of the intention of, and I'll just show this for a second. Oh, of course, hold on. Sorry about that, it shut off on me. Part of the intention while this loads was to use the hillside as a natural area for people to sit if they wanted to. Because of the way this sits into the landscape, this here is higher, naturally higher, so that it allows people to sit outside. So there was no real intention to build a lot of bleachers in that around this facility.
All right, okay.
They're minimal metal bleachers that you would find at a normal event.
Similar to what exists where the current courts are? Okay.
Like that.
All right.
Not as high, not as tall.
Not as tall, okay.
So you won't be bringing them over?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Very quickly, since it was just brought up, I just want to mention the town board did adopt last night a new section of zoning related to EV chargers. So when, in the future, when you're looking at implementation, you might want to take a peek at the code, at the design guidelines and so on that we just recently adopted.
That's great, thank you. And we'll get them for cheap with the new laws that were passed, right? Are there rebates and all sorts of things?
That's right. All right, I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine, thanks, Mike. Anything else, Rocco?
No, that's it. Thank you, Ken.
No, I have nothing.
Ben? Anything on this?
Something just came to mind. I didn't look. Is there bicycle racks in that area?
Yes.
There is?
There are.
Okay. All right.
The ambassador does a pretty good job with them around campus. Thanks.
I figured I'd ask for you.
Thanks, Ben. Peter, anything? Okay, is anything like a scoreboards or anything that you have for meets, or is just?
No.
There's nothing like a football field there.
The those flip things they have at tennis courts?
They just kind of have that, okay. And you said no night lighting.
Right.
I did have a question on pickleball, though. All these are, so everything's just tennis. I know some colleges have pickleball teams, or do you have any plans to include that in somewhere, or you can also put, I've seen stripes down for pickleball on a tennis court.
You know, I've had a question about pickleball more frequently in the past few months than I ever thought I'd get. We are, as we, you know, on the existing courts near Joss, as we resurface those, we're planning on putting in lines for pickleball, as well as probably basketball and that kind of thing. So we have more multi-surface kind of, or multi-use kind of.
Perfect.
Place, yeah.
That sounds great. All right.
I move the planning board declare that this project is an unlisted action, and that the board intends to conduct an uncoordinated review of the action pursuant to Seeker 617.6.
Second.
Moved and seconded for an unlisted action. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move the planning board as an involved agency for an uncoordinated seeker review of an unlisted action determine that the Vassar College Tennis Courts site plan application would not have a significant adverse effect on the environment, and that no environmental impact statement will be required for the reasons set forth in the negative declaration dated August 18, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for the Vassar College Tennis Courts site plan, subject to the following. Respond to the comments of the planning board and those received to town departments and agencies. Said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, included up but not limited to the following 1 through 11.
Second.
Moved and seconded for grant conditional. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Good to go.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your help. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care, Ken. All right, we got Mr. Tinkelman up next at BP4 Westerly House. Come on down and tell us about your new proposal.
It's the industrial strength laptop.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. I'm pleased to present, or should I wait for the technology?
Wait till he has it up, I guess.
You need the mouse.
No full-scale models here?
Not quite that. 1981. Last one we did. It's funny you say that. We designed the LaGrange Farms project. And I have this huge model where it was a museum board and everything was cut little pieces and still have this thing. And you think about all the work that went into that.
Before you had all the CAD programs.
Yeah. Anyway, I might as well start. I'm pleased to present this next phase of what we'd like to build at Van Wagner Place. And maybe just start this because we haven't been here in a bit. I want to step back and just kind of give a summary as to where we're at. We've built to date 28 housing units in this neighborhood and about 40,000 square feet of commercial office space, retail space in 12 buildings, and we're completely full on all fronts. We have a project that that we've been in front of you and been approved called the Pork Chop Building, affectionately. We're getting ready to start construction on that, and we have two schedules. One is to start in September, and the other one is to start break of spring, February, March. But we have our team together, and that's moving forward. We still have one problem: we haven't gotten our approvals from the DOT, and it's been incredible to try to work through that, and they've really had no issues. So hopefully we're going to see something in the next week or so, and we may have to ask you to help us if you wouldn't mind us reaching out to you on that.
Just let us know if that becomes necessary. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And with and why that pork chop building is important is not only just to keep building because inertia is important. We lost a little inertia with COVID and stuff like that, but it comes with the neighborhood plaza that you've approved, and which is going to be really important to the neighborhood, and also having the pool, which is going to be used not only by the British Swim School but also by our tenants. So. So our next, so that's kind of our status here. So that brings us up to 56 units and 48,000 square feet. So we're beginning to make a dent in terms of really becoming a neighborhood. But we have more to do, and this site has been, on our radar since we got started. It's a wooded site that is adjacent to the center house and hilltop buildings that we've constructed 3 or 4 years ago, and on this site there is a building that has two uses in it. On the second floor, there's third floor. There's a single family residence there, and on the first floor is a future commercial space. We're likely going to build that out in the next couple of weeks because we may use that for the construction office, for the next couple of projects. So the next phase is what we're calling the Westerly, and it's a 20-unit structure that we fondly are calling like a tree house on the site. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, we like about what we're trying to do is we have a lot of diverse pieces of architecture, but they all have a sense of place that we feel work together. And we want to continue with the idea that everything has its own spirit. The pork chop building, for example, is more urban and it's on the highway. This one is kind of in the woods, and there's a forever green area behind it. And we've been working with our neighbors in front for a couple things. One is being a good neighbor. Most importantly is the landscaping, and they're also helping us with some of the utility work through. Because there's some drainage problems that they suffer from that we're able to repair with the construction of this project. And the site here is ATC, as is most of what, I guess you have a map showing the green parcels there are all ATC.
Blue is ATC, the red parcels are the R20 district, and then we have some of the BH. So we have 3 different zoning districts right in this area right here.
Yeah, thank you. But the success of the neighborhood, as you all know, is vitality, and having more residents here is really a plus. And so while we're building a sense of community, you know, the idea of having diverse options, you know, that are carefully stitched together, this building wants to be a little bit more, you know, private and rural in its feeling because of the wooded site that it's on. You know, that being said, all of these buildings that we have are connected through sidewalks, and we're continuing to add more sidewalks on this. Maybe the early apology here is we sent the package into you because we want to have this meeting to let you see what we're thinking about, and there were a lot of good comments that came from both zoning and from planning and from Mr. Holman that are obviously important to, you know, what we're doing here. And you'll begin to see the connectivity between, you know, this project and our dog park, and we're going to connect to the center house and Hilltop, and you can see sidewalks that come down to Springside Avenue that, you know, can cross over to the, you know, the pork chop building as well. So you'll see all those things that we have not submitted in this package, like signage. And but again, we really feel, because I think the way you know how we work is we really like to be interactive with you and show you, you know, where we're starting from and get initial feedback. So one of the things about this building is it's technically a 4-story building, but the 4th floor is only 2 units, and part of the 4th floor. It's, by the way the building is designed, we have some parking underneath it, and it really reads like a 2-story building. So the height of this building is about 48 feet now. That I could get that down to the 45-foot requirement, but I may ask for you to, because you can through a special permit, let us be a little taller. I do think the design that you have right now, the roof form is a little big, so we might be able to, you know, reduce that anyway. But we have 4 stories from a technical point of view, and and again, it, you know, this is, you know, we're only talking a couple feet, and if we had to hit the fire on it and make 45, we could do that. You know, again, so then the special permit issue becomes the number of floors on the building. Keep in mind a lot of things that we're talking about here. You know, we've also addressed height issues with pork chop. You know, that building, you know, again is 20 feet plus larger than this in height, and that has 5 stories. The way this building is structured is an elevator building. We're doing flats here, so there's a center corridor, you know, in the building. The lower level has also a couple of handicap units, and also units that open up onto the backyard. There's also, for all the different buildings that we're doing community spaces, so that each building kind of is its own neighborhood. So it has a, excuse me, a community room, a WeWork type space in it. There's a gym in it, and there's outdoor space in the back for barbecuing and sitting outside. Sorry about that. The mix here is 1s and 2s, and one of the things I really like about this building is is the proportion of the units here. These are maybe some of the stronger units that we've done, based upon just being thoughtful about how much light and air there in the apartments. And one of the, the kind of features that is beginning to disappear in terms of, rental architecture is a laundry room. And so, we're putting laundry rooms in here, which is a room that actually has storage in it, side-by-side washer and dryer countertop. And as droll as that sounds, it's a really nice feature to have, if this is really home. And home replacement is, kind of what we've been trying to do with all of our projects. The other aspect, which is really nice, is the covered parking underneath. We don't have enough units or enough spaces for all the units, but we're close to to that underneath the building. So again, we'll be continuing to fiddle with it, but we really like the floor plan and the way the site plan works. And we're still looking at some minor form adjustments in materials. Again, no landscaping plan has come to you yet, but we're beginning to work on significant buffer between us and the properties in front of us, and so that this is really a private spot in the back. And again, as I mentioned, everything is going to be interconnected with the rest of the neighborhood. One of the things that came up from your last file here was pickleball, and we're trying to find a place for that here. It just seems like one of these sports that are taking off, and older people are able to enjoy it as well and get some exercise. We're struggling a little bit with topography here, but it's really on our radar. So to make all this work, again, we studied the neighborhood, that we've been creating, looked at the land area and the unit counts, and we found that we had the ability to still construct additional 20+ units, depending on final calculations, if you density average and you use the rules and regulations that you have in your ordinance. And we have had conversations, with Mike and Eric on this thing, and mostly, and it seemed like a strategy that works. And again, having a bigger community, again, this is not a dense community, but having more people here makes this a better neighborhood. So, we've submitted the calculations on how we got there, because we have technically only 40 units in the based upon having commercial space on the first floor, which you don't count the upper units, and there's all those things that are in your ordinance. And so it gives us, if we are talking about this as a whole, then these 20 units then become possible. Again, it really makes us a better place. So, that's the first thing that's on the table here. And again, there's no issue with us, doing legal agreements so that this is all, in writing and clear as to how the density was established. And so we're not able to do this again and come back and reuse it. So we're here just once to pull this off. The second thing you should know is that that we currently have a requirement on the whole campus of about 162 parking spaces. Maybe I got off by a couple numbers here, but we've provided 185 with this. So we have adequate parking for all these projects. And as part of our working with you in the past, we've created inter-site relationships. So the center house property parks across the street. So we've really been working together in the same way that we're talking about density averaging, that we have legal agreements that went through Lisa Cobb, for, let's say, if you're in the pork chop building, you can park on the adjacent parking lot next door. So we've really set the spirit up and through past action on this. With this project, we're asking for 0 variances, and the bulk charts here, and I'll just do this real quickly, because I'm sure but the lot coverage, your requirement is 60% maximum, we're at 16%. Impervious, you're allowing 95%, and we're at 48%. So, I mean, there's no side yard setbacks, the parking, and we still have some parking issues to work out in terms of whether we can park on a R2 zone, but we can adjust the location of that parking lot so we can solve that problem. And we're also having a driveway coming through another piece that we own, and that'll be an easement, and it seems that legally is appropriate, but I'll let your counsel opine on that. So then the other issue is the height that we talked about, again, through special permit, which you're allowed to go 75 feet and 5 stories. We're really talking about maybe 48 feet, and again, if you insisted on the 45, we could do that, but then we would just be asking to have 4 floors rather than 3 within that height envelope. We'd like to have taller ceilings in the spaces, so with trying to deal with truss joists and getting good 9-foot ceilings, you end up moving up a little higher than the 45 feet, but and then the last part of the special permit would be the acceptance of 8 units per acre rather than 6. And you've done that with us in the past on the pork chop project, so it's not asking for something that we haven't done, though you may have changed your mind on it, but that would be a request as part of the, of this application. So in summary, I thanks for listening. I do hope that you like what you see. It's an evolution here. If I had my druthers, we'll come back with a lot of detail at the next meeting. The goal would be to get this under construction in the second quarter of next year, and that's currently the plan. And I'm really looking forward to your comments and all. So thank you.
Remember the tree clearing limits when you think about when to construct.
I'm sorry?
Remember the tree clearing when you're thinking about when you want to construct.
Yeah, I think that was also a note that has to be on the drawings, but yes. Yeah.
All right, thanks for the presentation, Steve. Eric?
Sure. You have in your packets, we got an updated comments which reflect the zoning administrator's interpretation of the ATC district code. The board had some questions about the density, the proposal for the density, and her discussion with me was that it seems okay in the ATC district. She showed that in her comments. It's a conceptual first submittal suitable for lead agency circulation, and that's the staff recommendation for this submittal. Is for the board to declare its lead agency intent and to circulate. We do add some comments just to help for next time around to get some more information, as Steve discussed. But it's a good start on the preliminary information and layout. So we're recommending that the board discuss it and get its comments from other consultants and declare lead agency.
All right, sounds good. Andy, anything to start
Sure.
off with?
We have a number of kind of our standard comments, that need to be addressed. We have typically longer list in our first review. One thing that I didn't pick up on until just now, as far as your grading is concerned, I noticed that you're showing units on the first floor, but your first floor elevation is shown as 211, and you've got some elevations in the rear of 217 and 220. Are you anticipating another wall in the back, Steve, or are you going to grade that out? How would that work for those units in the first floor?
We've been working with Ken Casamano, LRC. We haven't finalized the grades on that, but it looks like we're able to grade. There may be a small wall on one side of the building, so that's not done yet. But all your comments, are obvious things that we know we need to address, and so we appreciate that.
Okay. All right. And then, as just maybe if you could talk a little bit about the pipe under the building. I have some, obviously from my comments, some concerns about that. Is
Right.
that something you've done before? How do you anticipate that working long term in terms of maintenance, sizing, that kind of thing?
You know, I'm not the one to answer that, so I'm going to defer to Ken on that. What it does is, and the history on this is pretty crazy, but the housing project up in the back was approved, and that project drains through this site and actually floods out the neighbors in front of us. And apparently there was a plan to pipe this site and into basins on Norm's property in front of us. There's already, so the catch basin was put on his property for this to go into. Something happened where the family that owned this didn't do that, and the project was built anyway. And so, you know, there are times apparently that there's water that runs through and floods on Norm's property. So this is going to help him, so that'll never happen.
So that pipe is not connected currently, you're saying?
Right.
Ah, I thought that, it might have been something that connected into the DOT drains or something.
Yeah, you would have thought they would have had some kind of head wall or something on their
Yeah.
property and all that. So we're going to be able to solve that problem, which is one of the reasons the neighbor's been happy about, you know, what we're doing here. How you work exactly that pipe, we'll talk about
And
that.
is there any opportunity to shift the building so it's not over top of the pipe, or have you already kind of evaluated that?
Pretty much, given the grades there, and you really don't want to get into heavy rock work because then it doesn't pro forma out. And this is a kind of the right area of doing that. So there's got to be a way, or there's been ways we've been talking about, but I'd rather have engineer talk about that.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Gotta be able to maintain it and, over the years.
We'll make it big enough to be able to walk in there and
There you go. Walk in there and trim the growth that's coming. All right, let's go around the board for comments. Rafa, do you have anything?
It sounds like, Steve, that you have started to speak with your neighbors in the front of you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm sure, and I talked to them before tonight's meeting, so they knew of the meeting, because we want them to be there. It's a confidence thing. We're having conversations with everybody. It's the right way to work, and they're our neighbors, and they came out on the pork chop project too, and you know, and ultimately supported it. So yeah, they'll be here, Rocco.
Now, and just another quick thing, given the perspectives that you show on your initial drawings, are those trees in the front? What's the approximate height they're going to be at? Will the perspective be when you're on Spring Street that's what you'll see? Is basically that?
Yeah, that's the plan. We're still working with the neighbors about where we're going to landscape, because we're going to need some retaining wall there. And so there's been some conversation about planting on their property as well as ours, or how to do that for their happiness as well. We'll have that resolved for the next submission. We'll also be bringing the virtual reality model in again, so we'll be able to, you know, dance through the whole thing, and we can take you to different spots and really see it. So,
yeah, I was curious if you're able to keep some of that foliage that's there now, or if you're, because
that's the
some
plan.
mature trees there already behind their houses, and then how that all works out. So.
Reality is that you end up losing more things than you want, so you end up having to plant back.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sure there's going to be a mix of both of those strategies. You know, just
I
because.
appreciate you already approaching the neighbors and talking to them about it, so it's great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rocco. Nicole?
Yeah, initially looking at this, I thought it was too big. But after seeing your presentation tonight, it's kind of up on the hill, so it doesn't seem as large as it did just seeing it on paper. As far as, there was one comment that jumped out at me, and I'm sure you probably received it from Dutchess County Department in Planning. They had mentioned that because you do have these other residential, places, you don't really have any outdoor type of space for these people necessarily. And is there a possibility of doing something here with this particular project? like in the back, or is it too much of a grade up?
Well, first of all, thanks for, being concerned about the scale of the building. I really like the scale here, and so when you see the model, you'll actually feel that this thing is kind of tucked in a nice way.
Right.
The idea of open space is kind of important, and so the strategy is kind of threefold to date, and there's some other things up our sleeve, but threefold to date. One is over on BP3, which is the first project we did where our office used to be, where the community foundation is. There's a children's garden there and some outdoor space. We're gonna have a pretty substantial urban parklet in front of the pork chop building, which is hardscape and softscape, so that, that is, gonna be part of that project. On this site, there's a dog park that's up on the top of the hill. And that hill is really nicely manicured right now, or mowed and stuff, and so there's really nice areas to sit. And with this construction here, the side of that hill towards this building will be further civilized, maybe that's the word, and there'll also be walking paths through
So
there.
will you be putting benches in then?
Yeah, we
For
haven't-
sitting and that type of thing?
You haven't gotten to the solution on that.
Right.
And that's where we're also looking for, trying to find a spot for the pickleball. So, but the idea here is, there's a lot of green space here that's pleasant, both to look at, and then how do we integrate it?
Right.
So hopefully we'll satisfy some of those concerns when you see the next iteration of the project.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Nicole. Ben?
Not at this time, nothing.
And Peter?
Just two things. One, want you to take a very close look at that drain pipe and make sure that moving forward, that this is not going to present a problem in the future. The other thing is when I looked at the building, which is fine, that's a lot of roof. It's on a hill. You have a big roof on the east and west ends of the building. If there's something you could do, you're the architect, you've always done a great job. I don't know whether you could put maybe a shed dormer, something in there to break that roof up.
Right.
Just so that wasn't so dominating.
You always give good comment, and when I looked at this preparing for today's, I haven't looked at the project for a couple of weeks, and my sense of that roof was it's too big, and so I don't know what the solution was, but when we first started, and to your point about the massing of it, we have a couple of rooftop units up there that are different from the other ones, and we did that to break up the roof as well and to create some outdoor space up there on the roof. There's also going to be some outdoor space that are public in the center, which we'll show you on the model in the building, so that you can sit and overlook you can oversee the whole neighborhood. But we're aware of that, so that's a good comment. So thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Lisa, could you just say anything about the number of units? I think Mike alluded to it, Lisa, that you're in agreement that the code allows this combination of.
So the decision is actually Chrissy's, obviously, to make in the instant, but the code talks about density per acre. It doesn't talk about density per lot. So if we treat this as a common development and include the other structures, then we should, it is possible to construe it the way that Steve is proposing and have it considered to be a campus effect. But we would need, obviously, legal agreements put in place, density covenants, the same way we have the shared parking, et cetera. But from a legal standpoint, I don't see, our code doesn't explicitly prevent it. So we haven't done it before, but there's nothing in the code that says we can't. So.
I would only comment, it doesn't prevent it, but it also doesn't provide for it.
It's true,
So
it's
that
not explicitly.
Yeah, so I think we don't want to get over our skis here. We want to make sure that whatever we do, like you said, everything is carefully tied.
Yes, I have no doubt that we'll be able to work out legal agreements that will accomplish the goal of, keeping what the restrictions, because candidly, when this project first came in and the density was proposed, I raised the question with Eric, because I said, you can only have 8 per acre, and this is well over that, and that's how this got triggered. And, I think the idea of treating it as a campus is fair because we've treated the other structures that are going in as more of a campus environment, with the parking allowed and so on, so.
Okay, great. Sounds good. I would think we've covered almost everything. I guess my biggest thing is the screening behind the homes of the neighbors, and you're working with them on that. And the architecture, I think, looks pretty good. As Peter said, you might, the roof looks big, but I like the way that you turned 4 stories into making it look like 2 almost.
You know what I love about Peter's comment
So-
is that Peter's always the one who says, well, no, about the flat roofs.
It's the first thing I look for.
So, yeah, we've got
It's
that
not
on
a
the
flat
radar.
roof, but it's a big roof.
Yeah, so we got that on the radar, but thanks. Yeah.
And I don't know what your clientele is. You don't have a playground on site or anything like that. But I don't know how many kids you're having, as you're renting out these units or not. But,
It's interesting you say that because if you were to ask, well, who's living in Van Wagner Place right now, you'd kind of say, well, it's really diverse, age-wise and orientation and what people do and stuff like that. We don't really have kids, we have a couple, but
I know you have the childhood center down there and such, but it's but if you don't have.
But we'll think about that too.
If you don't have the need for a playground, that's just another amenity to think about. All right, thanks.
I move the planning board declare its intent to be the seeker lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department's circulation of a notice of intent, copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to all involved in enlisted agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded for lead agency. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move the planning board defer action on this application pending the establishment of lead agency and direct the applicant to respond in writing to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies included but not limited to the following, 1 through 13.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Does that include our comments from tonight?
It does.
Okay.
13.
The roof.
And I'll just note there was a typo, the engineering consultant's comments are August 17th, not 8th. And I would also suggest the planning department include the supplement that I gave you dated August 16th, as well as the August 11th.
Okay. Modify the motion as to those changes.
Second.
And second again. Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll be back in October. I
Yeah.
think your submission date is next week.
Yeah, Monday.
It's Monday.
I'll see you in October.
See you in October.
In October.
I appreciate that up front. You gave us the whole master plan view, so we knew this was coming, and it's good to see the whole area coming together nicely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, that's my last agenda item for tonight, so I will see everyone next month.
Okay. Bye,
All
Lisa.
right, thanks. Have a good night. Next up is Sobel at 3432 to 3456 North Road. Who's here representing them?
You're on mute? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Robert? Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm representing the Angelo Gabo in regards to this. Seems to be, after what I've heard this evening when I'm sitting here for the whole meeting, this hopefully should be pretty cut and dry. We are proposing one of the old glass garage doors that you see that's very popular on a lot of the eateries and restaurants in the area. For this new location in the old Starbucks across from Maris College.
Yeah, it looked pretty straightforward to replace that. And so that'll give you outdoor dining, I guess, or just a way to open it up?
Yeah, it's just so that we're bringing the outside in. There is a possibility that there'll be a couple of tables and chairs out there at some point in time, but for right now, we're just trying to bring that outside in, that look that everybody is doing today.
All right, sounds good. Kristen's again.
Yeah.
you have anything to say about it, Mike?
Not a lot. I don't know if you have the ability to share your screen so that the board can take a look at it, although we do all have it in front of us. Do you have?
One of the architects is on with us as well, so he can share the screen and show you an elevation. Manuel, you there?
Yep, there we go. It's coming up.
Will we pull it up? Good evening, everyone.
There we go.
Yep, we see it now.
So it's just that elevation on the over on the right of the drawing, right there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, it's limited to this. Let me share the screen of the existing conditions so we can compare.
What is in there now is approximately maybe a foot and a half less in height.
That is correct. It's currently a Starbucks and it's a little bit short of struggling a bit to find the control for this. I apologize for that.
It's fine.
It's okay. I think
We can see it.
we can see it. Yeah. Kristen's comments were mostly just wanting to get some confirmation that there's no other changes proposed to the site, to the landscaping, to the lighting, to the existing parking and so forth. It's really just the facade that you're changing?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so no site plan issues that we have to worry about.
And are there any new rooftop mechanicals or anything that would be needed on the site, or is that all?
No, everything is in good working condition.
Okay. That was really the nature of her comments.
All right, sounds good. Let's go around quick. Have any comments from board members? Peter, Ben?
Handsome family.
That's funny.
This is the existing condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, got it. Yes. Yep. So is other tenants remaining, or every?
So it's just we're taking over the Starbucks site, and the goal is to open up just the bottom.
Yep, and there's already kind of a patio out there that Starbucks was using. All right, great.
And yeah, similar to what Starbucks is doing as far as the outdoor seating.
Nicole, anything? Rocco?
Where are the signs going to be for Sobel? Are there signage?
Yeah, they don't have any signage
you don't?
available to
Okay.
us. I mean, Sobel does have signage, but you guys don't have any signage that you want to show us, right?
At the present moment, not to interrupt, I do apologize. At the present moment, GNS is working on that right now. And they will submit all their applications and photographs and stuff like that. And as far as their drawings, as soon as that's finished. But there will be a sign in the front of the building like Starbucks had, which will have the brand name on it. But other than that, as of right now, we don't have the actual physical
So this is kind of what a
rendering of that sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the zoning department is expecting a permit
something like that.
application from them, and we'll review
Be
it.
a condition of approval.
Yeah.
It-
It's a chain, so they'll probably have kind of the same type of sign, right?
I'm okay with that if it's.
Very similar, yes.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
That sounds good. Anything else, Ben? You guys okay over there?
So,
Yeah, that
Carl,
was my question too, is the signage.
I just had one question. Is the door going to be functional, or is it just for
Yes.
us?
Yep.
Yes,
So-
the door will be functional. It'll have an opener on the interior that that the employees will be able to open and close. It will also have a security feature on it where it's tamper-proof.
Okay. The existing photograph that we just saw
Yes.
showed a landscaping area in front of that door.
Yes.
Is that going to remain, or will that be removed?
That's going to be removed and brought down to the grade at the bottom of the door.
Okay.
Oh, there was, in front of that window, there was a.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So that was the kind of little site change that I think Kristen was asking about in her note. We'll need to just see, you'll need to just address that in the response back. But I think we can deal with
Absolutely.
that as.
I mean, you could put a potted plant out there too.
Okay.
To beautify it.
Well, there's room on each side to put something in those large pots. I mean,
Right, yeah,
They're
so-
all over the place.
There's a lot of that, so.
but I assume you'll be pouring a concrete slab there.
I would assume that that's something that we probably will have to entertain, right? Because otherwise it'll be, you'll have that mulch at ground level. You really probably won't be able to properly put tables out there, except for the sidewalk area like Starbucks used to do. But that's something I guess the owners will make the decision on. So, if whatever your comments are on that, we'd be happy to hear.
Yeah, I'm sure that once that door is open, you'll be walking back and forth there, so.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll need to just look at that when we finally sign off on this before it goes for the building permit. We'll need to just confirm how that's being done, okay?
We can leave that to department approval then.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, I move that the planning board grant architectural approval as presented and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies included but not limited to the following 1 through 4.
And I just want to add maybe include a planter,
A couple of
couple of planters to replace what's being removed there.
Okay.
Okay.
Second amendment.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I know it was a long
Thank
night.
you.
Long night. Thanks for hanging in there. And, good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have a time extension for the Verizon retail store and an architectural review of it. Is there anyone on to represent the Verizon store?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Is that Brian speaking?
Yes. Brian Weiser, Basic
Yep.
Proposal.
Can hear you just barely, if you could speak up a little.
Let me fix these audio settings.
Oh, there we go. Now we got you.
Okay. Good evening. I can jump right in quick, if you'd like.
Yeah,
The last on the agenda, I'm sure we all like to go home.
We've seen this project a few times, and we're just interested to see what architecture, or just getting materials passed around in the room here, so. Yeah, well, go ahead and share your screen if you want, and let us know what you're doing. We got the dark gray and the light gray EFS examples here, it looks like.
Yes. Again, this was originally planned wings that was to be expanded with 2 uses. The project was segregated into converting the building to Verizon, and now we're here for the addition. So the Verizon, which was the former planned wings, is completed, and he's looking to add this 1,500 square foot extension off the back. This was all again previously approved. Outstanding was the architectural review. So the architect has provided finally a rendering of what they are seeking to build right now. He does not have a tenant in place, so he just has a placeholder here. He'll be seeking to any kind of amendments or signage that he'll have to get once he finds a tenant for this location. But he'd like to go with the construct it and they shall come approach.
Okay.
So again, the colors are the same as the Verizon building, just broken up a little bit differently, just so you can see that they are 2 separate uses, but kind of a cohesive scheme. It's a relatively simple look. I think it ties in nicely. The board needed to see this, and we do have those samples for you to look at. They're the same colors of the Verizon building, so they should match. And that's it.
All right, yeah, we just passed the samples around the board here, so thanks. Any comments from board members on the architecture? Looks good.
On the architecture, wasn't there some cleanup work that had to be done on this site? Has this been accomplished?
The site, well, it hasn't been constructed yet. The site plan has yet to be signed, and that's why they're seeking a time extension.
For this, but I mean, there was an issue in the corner at one time of
Floodplain.
the floodplain for the trash.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're remembering then, but I think that had been cleared up when they did the Verizon store.
Yes, I believe we've gotten everything cleaned up because we, at the time, we did have a TCO on the Verizon building and as a condition of getting a final CO, everything had to be cleaned up. And we went through and everything was addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they hadn't built the trash enclosure, and they did complete that. I have just a quickie question, administrative somewhat, on the architecture. You gave us 2 EFS samples, and you're showing stone veneer. Is one it shows, the rendering shows the lighter gray EFS and a stone veneer.
On the bottom.
And we have 2 samples of different colored EFS. Did you intend for one of those to be different?
They're showing the stone. He did not get a sample of that specifically, but it is going to be the same color as the darker gray. The only difference would be the pattern. That would be the only, I guess, objective.
Okay. And it's a stone cladding, or it's EFS?
It's a cladding of stone, it looks like.
Yeah, just the stone cladding on the bottom.
Got it.
But it's going to be the dark gray to match everything and tie the top to the bottom.
Okay, that's a nice touch. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
All right, I move the planning board grant 1 90-day time extension of conditional site plan approval for September 23rd, 2021, forward to December 22nd, 2022, and to advise the applicant that obtaining site plan signature and a building permit are necessary to preserve site plan approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded for time extension. Called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And I move that we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Good to go, thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you.
Long night.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
Let's get this one done. Any other business before the board?
I move that we end tonight's meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions, it will be 5-0 to terminate the meeting.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.